Coming up next on the Zapata Brand podcast, this woman has been through it all. Lyme disease, fainting spells, and even cancer. She ultimately decided a new diet and a new way of thinking would not only heal her, but help her heal others. Now she is the healer. The Zapata Brand welcomes Angela Lerro.
Firstly, we're happy to have you. That's number one. Mm-hmm. And we finally got you here. Before we go into your story, a friend of ours, mutual friend, had reached out to us and told me your story. And over the last week, we've had people in here with mental health, physical health, self-help. And I thought this would be a good week for you to come in. So we finally got together. So again, let's start with your story.
Oh, well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much, George, for reaching out to me and just letting me share my story with you and sharing this amazing space with me. And just thank you for allowing me to and to come here and inviting me to talk about this today. It's my journey is very unique, and it's brought in a lot of hardship, and it's an emotional one. And so just to be able to sit here and talk about it and share with you and your viewers is really special, because there was a time that I didn't think I was going to make it, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
But yeah, let's start from the beginning. So growing up, I grew up here in Berwick, and I had a whole lot of mysterious health issues. And
now, when did they first start?
Probably,
like when can you remember when we were like, oh, something's weird going on?
I would say like really first grade, maybe first or second grade. I was always sick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had allergies all the time, not just in the spring and summer when most people had, but in the fall, winter, I always had strep throat. I had a laundry list of medications I was always on. My mom used to joke around and tell me that CVS, or I guess back in the day it was Rare and Derek's.
Oh, right.
Do you remember that?
I actually bought we bought the building across the street from it, but they used to always tell me about Rare and Derek's. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a while ago.
Yeah. Jeez. Well, that's where I used to get all my antibiotics. And we used to have this, my mom would tell me, she's like, we have a whole medicine cabinet for you behind the desk, because every time I was sick, it was like the rotating medicine cabinet at the pharmacy. And so I lived at the doctor's constantly with stuff from the time I was, even like when I was like really little, till the time, I mean, let's be honest, until now. I mean,
well, also like for context, well, maybe not, because I'm a lot older than you, but there weren't like specialist doctors.
No,
like there wasn't like a Geisinger clinic where we're going to send you to this guy who only does allergies, who only does specific stuff. You're going to your regular Dr. John, Dr.
in the beginning, yeah.
You know what I mean? Down there, that's what I mean. So initially, it's got to be one, frustrating for you, frustrating for your mother.
Yeah, my parents.
Your parents both.
Totally. And at the time, and of course, like the early ages, I was going to just a family medicine practitioner. And it really wasn't until I would say like third grade. That's when I started going to the Napper Clinic at Geisinger, and that's where they had pediatrics. And so I started being seen there, and constant strep throat. I always suffered with hives, and I just always had like just weird stuff. You know, I'd eat something, it'd get stuck in my throat. And I never really understood, like nobody really understood it. We just thought, okay, she's a child. She's just, I'm like, yeah, but now that I think back about it, I'm like, why I should have never been this sick. I wasn't, but at the same time, even though I was sick and had all these weird things, I was also really active. I mean, I was a dancer. I was in dance. I was in gymnastics. I swam. I was a cheerleader. Like I
So
did all
let
the
me ask you,
things.
what did your parents think it was?
At the time, because I guess everything was diagnosed as something. So like chronic strep throat was just chronic strep throat.
Okay.
These allergies or hives. Oh, must be the laundry detergent.
Right.
Must be, maybe it's a bug bite. Nobody ever thought, oh, maybe she's having an immune issue, or maybe it's because autoimmune, that wasn't a thing in the early 90s. Nobody knew what that even meant, but we did know that I was on a ton of antibiotics at all times. And nobody back then knew the damage that the antibiotics could do on our gut and our gut health. And especially if we keep putting antibiotics into children who are just barely building their gut bacteria, which is essential for our immune system, then we're just creating this snowball, this domino effect of just getting sicker and not better.
Okay. So these are your early stages where you remember.
Yes.
Okay. So now as you're going, now this is your adolescent. I mean, you're talking not even in high school, let alone.
Right. This was middle school, like elementary school.
Yeah.
Middle school. I mean, middle school it got even worse because then I was dealing with once sorry if this is TMI, but once my cycle began and I hit, my teenage years, and then you activate the hormones. My hormones were terrible. And I lived in the hospital because I was overly menstruating.
Right.
And it was it's now that I look back and I see the progression of my hormones and the way they were. And I felt so embarrassed because I was in 7th grade on birth control pills, trying to control this cycle and my hormones, and people I'd be at my friend's house taking my birth control pill.
and let alone that. I mean, now you have anxiety.
Yes.
And all the other crap that goes, because it's weird. Well, everybody knows it's weird going through high school.
Going through puberty and all that. That's already a traumatic experience.
Right. And now all that on top of it. I mean, so at that, that to me would be way over the top. So it had to affect you, number one, which is what it did to me. I didn't have, cycles and whatever, but I mean, going through puberty and stuff like that, I just didn't go to school because I was okay. So now you don't want to go to school. You're just this is stupid. You're dealing with this.
Yeah.
Let alone all the other stuff going outside. So now you're dealing with all this stuff at a time where you're supposed to be figuring yourself out.
Right.
So how do you figure yourself out at this point?
Right. I mean, and it's interesting you say that about not going to school, because the doctors, when I would see them, because of what I was going through hormonally and everything, my doctors would tell my mom to not send me to school.
Oh.
Because it was too much for me.
Could you imagine that now? If a doctor said that to you?
Yeah.
It'd be absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Because first of all, you'd have to try to see if they could somehow figure out a way what is happening.
Yep.
And they would already, from what I gather from you, they couldn't figure it out.
Right. They couldn't. They could not figure. I mean, like I said, nothing. There was no test. I never got tested for anything other than just what the symptom I was going through, which they, okay, well, she's got these extra long cycles. Well, her hormones are out of balance. But as far as I'm concerned, Western medicine does a great job putting Band-Aids on.
I was just going to say that.
So to find solutions, but they're not finding the root cause of why these things are happening. So you're going to the doctor with these sore throats and then, weird random hormones and, all of these rashes and being just fatigued all the time. And all they're saying is, oh, well, it's strep throat, or oh, it's the flu, or
Mhm.
I'm like, but okay, well, why is it that I'm over here? I'm no different than anybody else. Why am
Mhm.
I getting? Nobody asked that question of, well, then, but okay, I understand that these are the things that are happening to her, but why?
Right. Let me ask you this now, because this happened in the 90s. Okay.
Yes.
And the 90s is perceived as the escalation of the obesity, hormones, drugs, any kind of old nonsense in the food. They
Yeah,
seem it just goes like this.
totally.
Okay. Do you, well, I wouldn't know the answer to this. Do you think because that happened that way, you had a certain genetic makeup and just that affected the way, because you said you ate normally like any other
Mhm.
kid, McDonald's
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
down the street, and it would, so it wasn't like we were eating homegrown meals, stuff like that. We were doing all the other stuff.
Right.
So do you think that affected your hormone system?
Absolutely. And that I'm actually gonna talk about the
Okay.
genetic stuff that I've just been recently learning through a new doctor that I'm working with, but I'll talk about that
Okay.
later on because you're absolutely right. Our genetics do play a huge role
Hmm.
in our makeup and our ability to rid toxins and
Yeah, because the point you brought up before, saying that we've never had this before. Well, before the 90s, there really wasn't, you never had all those other
yeah,
allergies.
right.
Now, here we are, and you're the walking billboard for saying, "Hey,
I've
there
had
there might be."
allergies forever.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is why can't someone give you answers? Because it never was like that before.
Right.
So there.
Right.
So now it's a testament to you saying you've gone through all this stuff. You're like the test dummy of all this stuff, and here you are in high school not figuring it out.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I mean, and like, let's add on the fact that this is something that it's a huge thing that I went through as a childhood. So when I was 9, my dad passed away.
Oh, geez.
I was in my 3rd grade summer. So here I've been having these health roller coasters,
Hmm.
and then the trauma of losing him.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like,
that's never
just
good.
it just
No.
completely derailed
Hmm.
everything because it was a very shocking, uh, death,
Right.
and we I
Was it
w
sudden?
yeah,
Okay.
very sudden. I mean, my mom and I, we were on vacation visiting my aunt in California in Orange
Hmm.
County, and we, um got a call as soon as we got home from, like, Universal Studios or something, and we had a call there was a call on the answering machine because
Oh,
we didn't have
answer
yeah,
machines.
because we didn't have cell phones back then.
Oh, answering machines. Boy, I'm way old here.
Yeah,
Holy cow.
yeah.
You don't
So
realize how something like that, simple, you just pick up the phone. Now you're going through different channels to get
totally,
that. So, wow. Man, we're getting old.
totally.
So,
So yeah, so that combined with all the other random stuff that went
mhm.
on in my life really just it's been really an emotional,
It
physical,
would
and
be.
spiritual
It would be
ride.
to anybody.
Yeah.
Let alone, not to say that, well, have it be that your father passed. Not saying that women are with estrogen, women naturally have a more emotional,
Absolutely.
reaction.
Yeah.
They just do.
Yeah.
It's why, when someone is transitioning, if they want to transition to something else, to a guy, testosterone is
Mhm.
given to the girl, estrogen given to the guy, because it makes their emotions different, which really, um, shows you now. Here you are, a girl loses her dad, going through all the issues of life, health issues that you're still not having any answer to. Did you have an answer at that time, or not answer, but were you still feeling that way when you're in California? We're just like, okay, still sick, not sick, still sick, not sick.
Yeah, I would go through waves. So
Okay.
it wasn't like a chronic, like a constant, but it would be, like especially summertime
Hmm.
was always a good time for me to be healthy. So that it was over the summer. So I was visiting family, I was on vacation. I don't think I had any weird symptoms while I was there. And But it would just be like when I was sick, I'd
Right.
be sick.
You know what?
And then-
That happened to me too. I mean, obviously not like that, but I would get strep throat. I would get stuff like that. I would be really sick. I remember I'd be out of school for like a week.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was, during the pandemic. It was like you were toxic, so you couldn't do that. But you were out, and it was almost like, man, some of the kids that I saw now weren't as sick. But when you got sick, you got sick.
Yeah.
So I can feel for you that saying when you were sick and you were sick, you're out.
Yeah.
So now your dad passes away. Okay, so let's go forward a little bit to there. That complicates things double.
Oh, absolutely.
What is your next step? Let's say you're mourning your dad's loss.
Yeah.
Now the attention, because unfortunately after anybody dies, the sun comes up the next day, the bills are due the next month, people go on with their lives. You want everything to stop, but it doesn't stop. So now your chronic health issues are still coming.
You're right.
Okay.
At 9,
At 9.
it's like 9.
So how do you cope? First of all, how do you cope with the loss of a father at that age and going through your health issues?
Yeah. I don't even know. I don't even know if I could really look back at it. Because I remember being an only child too.
Oh.
So when I lost him, I remember I went from being 9 to 19. I just had to grow up very quickly after that. And because I knew my mom and I's life was going to be very different. And my mom, she's also very emotional. And I've always just had this, and I still have this sense with her that like, I want to take care of her. So I think that's kind of how I coped a lot with my trauma, was growing up and just kind of being the adult or being an adult, so that it would take a little less pressure off of her to worry about me.
But she's gonna worry now.
She worries more now.
No, probably. Well, what I'm saying is, she's probably gonna worry now more.
She does.
Because, even so, because she doesn't want to lose you.
Right.
I mean, I deal with this with my wife now. My wife's husband passed years ago, and now even when we're doing stuff, like she doesn't want to put like Legos on the floor or something, or like, because our cat plays with Legos and stuff and plays with other stuff, because she's scared that if I fall, she's scared. You know what I mean? So that plays in your mind. So I'm sure your mother is probably, she wants to nerf the world.
Yeah.
To make sure nothing happens to you.
Yeah. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
When I come home.
Yeah, but it's actually, it's probably her safe haven. If you think about it. So whether you think it or not, you're probably the safe haven to her.
Yes.
So
she has an eye on me here.
I'm sure she does. I mean, any parent, I could see if my spouse had passed, I'm not gonna wood that doesn't happen. You'd want to be closer to somebody, let alone the issues you're going through. And we're going to get to that. Yeah. You want that closeness with somebody as a parent, because, and you don't have children, I'm assuming. You want that closeness because, if the unconditional love that you get from a child is similar to the one you get from your spouse. It doesn't matter what it is. Right. It doesn't matter that you don't have makeup on. It doesn't matter that you didn't shower today. That you have unconditional love. Right. So if that goes away, that's hard. Right. That's really hard. Right. So you're talking about your mother now dealing with that with you now. Yeah. As you're going through this through high school now. Let's say you're beginning of high school. Yeah.
And middle school.
Well, middle school was probably really rough.
It was rough for her because she was getting calls all the time in middle school from the school nurse. Angela is sick. Angela, I mean, can you come pick her up? She's really bad. And so she'd have to leave work.
That's what I'm saying. At some point, and not to a fault of her own, not to a fault of her own, but at some point, she's probably come on, are you serious, Angela? Are you faking it because you just don't you have a test? Yeah. So she's probably at that, and not knowing. Because believe me, I do it with my kid all the time. If he's, both of my boys, I'm like, are you really hurt? Are you hurt? Yeah. Because you don't know. My boy just was hurt in football, and I was like, are you hurt? Or are you not hurt? Right. And are you injured? Or are you hurt? So I can see that being a problem because then,
Yeah.
then your mom's getting called out of work. One house income now.
Right.
So now it's really putting a lot of pressure here on everybody.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
I'm not thinking about that at all.
No. And I mean, that was a big part of it. So
Yeah.
thinking back, you think about what your mom went through too.
Absolutely. But the good thing was that at least when she would take me, because she would take me to the doctor.
Right.
And given that I had that health history from elementary school, it wasn't, I think it was, even though it was frustrating, she at least knew that I wasn't faking it or anything like that.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, because she's like been experiencing it. It's kind of been like a lifelong process
right.
with us. So, but I know that it was frustrating for her to have to always come pick me up. I feel for her for that.
What did your friends think?
Well, it's funny because a lot of them tell me what they thought then, now, but they didn't tell me what they thought then. And a lot of them, it's interesting, remember more about my health than I do, because I think there's a lot of parts of what I went through that I've just from the trauma of it all blocked it out. But I have friends that when I do talk to them, they're like, oh my gosh, I remember how sick you would be. And like a lot of us were just always so worried about you because it wasn't like you just said that you weren't well. Like we would see it. And so some of them were like, I just wondered how you got to school every day. Like, how did you even like get up to go to school? How were you a cheerleader?
Yeah.
How did you play field hockey? Like, how did you do the things that you did? Because there was just, I guess I've just always been a high functioning sick person.
Well, I mean, we laugh now, but at that time, you never think about it that way.
No.
Because your friends won't say anything. They would never say anything. They would just be like, Angela, something's up. It's Angela's like that. It's fine. But deep down inside, I couldn't imagine going through that.
Oh, absolutely.
In school. I couldn't, because I never went to school.
Yeah.
I never went.
I never went either, but for other reasons.
I mean, they put a 21 absentee rule in because of me. They did. Honest to God.
I beat you.
I didn't graduate, but that next year they said, you 21 days, you're out. So all you kids out there, the 21 rule in New Jersey, that's from me.
Wow.
21 days absent, you are automatically out.
Oh
you have
my
to, because then you have to go to summer school to make it up. Me and Andrew Amelia, this kid that went to school with me, Andrew, I'll never forget, we was like a competition. We never made a complete week of school ever. So it's kind of, I could see how if you're doing that, but you're legitimately sick. Me, I just didn't go.
Yeah.
There was other reasons. So you're legitimately sick. You want to go. You want to be with your friends. You want to hang out, and you can't go.
Right.
Did you feel left out?
Sometimes, but because this is such a small town that even if I couldn't go to school, I still found ways to hang out with them outside of school. So that was the beauty of just growing up here, because even if I wasn't in class and there was like a party or like a slumber party, I was still invited, just because I did have I was very, very blessed with a lot of beautiful friendships and great friends. It's funny, I wouldn't say I felt left out, but I definitely got bored a lot just being on the couch all the time. But the wonderful thing was that I had teachers that would put my work together for me, and they would send it home with somebody and they would bring my work home. So I did a lot of my work on the couch from, friends bringing it to me, which was really, really kind. Or somebody in my family would go pick it up at school for me, and basically it would just be all the notes and the assignments that I had to do. So I did a lot of my work from home a lot of the times.
Did that affect your social skills or no? Because you're a good talker.
Yeah.
You're actually a good talker, and you seem to have really developed good social skills.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I don't think it did, because so the other thing about growing up with a single family home with my mom was that I had a lot of friends that I got to stay with. So, and those friends had siblings. So even though I was like an only child, I kind of have this running joke. So my best friend, she still lives here. I call her my sister because we were best friends since the first day of kindergarten. And she lived a mile down the road from me. And
for context, where'd you live as far as Central School District?
So I live off of near Hogs Hollow.
Yeah.
Like off the back roads. And she lived off of a back road too. So we literally lived a mile from driveway to driveway. We were exactly a mile.
Okay.
And when my dad passed away, I basically lived at her house, especially in the summer times. And that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because being around, she's very being around her and her siblings who were very outgoing, and I was very shy growing up, very shy.
Really?
Yeah.
I would not have known that.
Oh my gosh.
Just because of the way how outward you are now.
Yeah, I'm so outward now, but growing up super shy. But I think again, that was probably because I was sick, and I probably did feel that sense of disconnection because I was trying to figure out what was going on in my body all the time. And that disconnection from myself made me feel a little disconnected from other people.
At what age did you finally say, okay, I'm going to get an answer?
Well, 28.
28.
And that was only one answer. I just got my answer 3 years ago.
Okay. And the answer would be
Lyme disease.
From a tick?
Tick. Could have been a tick. Could have been a spider. It could have been a mosquito, a flea, a chigger, a bed bug. There's multiple vectors, but I know that ticks are the number one carrier, but I didn't, and I could have been infected multiple times because I did live outside a lot of I grew up in the country. I did go camping a lot with my best friend. We went, we were always outside. Honestly, she saved my life as a kid. She gave me a childhood just being with her.
Well, you see, now you just justified my not going camping ever. I do not. I will not go.
I won't go camping anymore.
Well, I mean, my wife wants to go camping. She wants to go hiking. She wants to do all this nonsense outside, and I'm like, no, because we just had an incident here where my ex-father-in-law just got bit by a tick, but they didn't know. They didn't know it for the longest time. It must have been about 3 months out, 4 months out. So normally you see a tick, you could take it off because you could see it. He didn't have it. He didn't have that. He goes to go pick up my kids, and he fell out of the car. Couldn't get up.
Yep.
Got up, pulled himself up, put it there. Goes to urgent care, and he started not being able to speak. So they immediately think it's a stroke.
Yep.
Because he's in his 70s. They fly him down to Geisinger, and they're like, "Yo, you gotta go here now." It wasn't until his daughter said, test him for Lyme disease, because they wouldn't do it. It was like, nah, it can't be. It's, it's kind of cold. But then it made sense. I said, but they can be dormant for a while. And then it popped up, and bang, they gave him this medicine. They said, if he starts being able to speak better, it's Lyme disease. Sure enough, Lyme disease.
Right.
And so I know how that could affect somebody, because if you look at him, he's still dealing with it now. Right now, to this day.
Same.
And he's in his 70s.
Yeah.
So, he's kind of gone through marriage, kids, the whole bit. You're starting out.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with it.
Yep.
So you find out, well, you're going through high school still, and in college. I don't know if you went to college.
Yep.
Okay. So now you're going through all this, and are you still dealing with health issues at the time?
Yep. So it's interesting because as I'm telling you about the hormonal stuff that was happening in middle school.
Right.
So now we get to high school, and now we bring on the neurological stuff starts happening.
Okay.
And I, again, still cheering, still a cheerleader. because I started cheering 7th grade. And so we're in 9th grade and I started having all these neurological issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe because I had a fall while I was running to practice or running to a game and I slipped on ice. And then I did some funky things that day and I hit my head a bunch of times. So all of a sudden I had these neurological events happening. But when I went to every single doctor to get all these different tests, they wanted to say I had a conversion disorder. And I was like, I couldn't get out of bed. And I couldn't walk without somebody holding my hand to get to class.
Mm-hmm.
I had to have somebody now like walk me to class because if I walked too fast, I started getting dizzy.
Okay.
So if I look at that, I now am thinking, well, I probably did have those falls probably just again, just triggered whatever infection that had just been kind of this like underlying infection that was just getting gradually worse, but just little by little. And then to find out at the end of the road, they tested me for mono, like Epstein-Barr, and that came back positive. So again, it's my freshman year in high school. I'm just starting high school. It's like March, and what am I? Maybe 6 months into high school, 7 months into high school, and my cheerleading squad is on their way to nationals, and I worked my butt off for us to go. And then I find out right when we start learning our routines for competition that I have mono and that I have to stop everything. I can't cheer. I can't go to, like, they didn't want me to go to school again.
Right. Is mono contagious? I don't know.
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would make sense that they don't want you to go.
Yep.
But again, you tested positive for mono.
Right. Which
is there a link there?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There is.
Oh boy.
Well, I didn't know it then.
Okay. Well,
I know it now.
Okay.
But yes, the Epstein-Barr virus is activated from Lyme disease.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
So, okay. So now, you got kind of like the chicken before the egg. So you had the Lyme disease that
whole time
went to mono. So they didn't test you for the Lyme disease. They tested for the mono.
Yes.
That comes back positive. They didn't test you for Lyme disease.
No.
Oh boy.
No. No.
So they're just kind of passing the ball here.
Right.
Get down. Oh my gosh.
Right.
As you're going through this in high school, by the way.
Yes. And I'm just putting all my faith into the doctors.
Yeah.
I'm just.
And maybe no fault to theirs. I mean, I don't know. There's so many protocols that they have to follow, but you would think they would try to eliminate everything.
Right.
Instead of just saying, okay, mono, that's what it is. Here's the Band-Aid. Go.
Right. But also, even if they did test me for Lyme, which they didn't, but the thing with the Lyme test is that, so out of 100% of the tests that they run that are negative, right? So you look at 100% of these tests and they're all negative.
Right.
Only 30% are accurately negative.
Okay.
So the testing for Lyme is so horrendous. It's so terrible.
You would think with the amount of deer and ticks here and there that they'd have a better, grasp on that.
Right.
Or at least test it first.
Yeah.
I mean, considering, because one of the things that they did say to my ex-father-in-law was, he's a landscaper. He's outdoors. They live they go to the farm all the time. Like, why wouldn't, again, I'm not trying to blame the doctors at all. I'm not trying to do that. No, Lord knows I have plenty of doctor friends. I don't want them to get insulted. You would think that besides the fact, I'm sure you had insurance, that they would just say, hey, just test her for that. What's the difference? But they didn't.
They did not.
So you're where you're at now.
Right.
Now, and I don't mean to get personal, but relationship wise.
Oh, in high school? No.
Okay.
In high school, I always,
I mean, I'm saying being sick, and then, okay, you're going to go out on a day. I can't go tonight. I'm sick. I got mono.
Well, that did a little bit in high school because I was in a relationship when I got diagnosed with mono, and so I couldn't see my boyfriend, and so that was hard. But later on, throughout the like remaining of high school, I didn't really have too bad of a problem
Okay.
dating, but I probably didn't even realize if I did or not because again, I just was so used to being sick
Mm,
that like if I saw my boyfriend at high school or if I didn't, we would always talk on the phone or he would call
okay.
and check on me. But I do remember a couple relationships that I had that I did get really sick in high school. And I wish I would have done better at taking care of myself. But instead, my mom would be like, "You can't go. You're sick." I'm like, "I'm going, and I'm
Yeah,
going to the
yeah.
club tonight."
Yeah, well, I know that was it as a kid thing. We each want to
Yeah,
have
I'm
done
going
that.
to the club.
The stuff we did to just to see their boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Even the fact that you had mono at the time, so it's hard as it is
Yeah.
as a kid now you're going through it, a kid with all the emotions and everything, and now here you are years later finding out that it was Lyme disease.
Yes.
Um,
And I mean, and the worst part was that I got to a point where my mom, she couldn't, take off work to take care of me all the time. I mean, she tried, but I mean, I missed a lot of school.
yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, but again, that's the part of what's amazing that you've come this far.
Yeah.
Because socially, you should be behind. Socially, you shouldn't
Right.
have been as outgoing and as thought provocative as you are. You shouldn't, but you beat the odds there.
Thank you.
So, I mean, because you can kind of tell people who are little had troubled childhoods that didn't exactly be as much social as you are.
Yeah.
Your mom can't take off, obviously.
Yeah. So you want to know who took care of me? This is the best part. I think this is great.
I don't know.
My best friend, the one that lived in my
She took care of you.
She would take off of school.
Oh my God.
Me.
How was her grades?
Pretty good.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say because jeez, that could have been bad.
We look back at that now and joke about how did was that even possible?
So she was taking off of school.
Not all the time, but
Okay, but like times that you needed something.
that I would need. My mom would be like, "Call Takesha." Her name is Takesha. She'd be like, "Call Takesha. See if
Man.
she can take off."
What did Takesha's parents say? Or did
They'd
they
call
know?
her off. Her grandmother would, because her mom would be working, so her gram would call her off.
The old grandma trick.
Yeah, and then drop her off at my house, or my mom would drop me off at her house, or I would be spending the night at her house because I spent a lot of time.
I can tell you that's a good friend. That's a good friend.
She was my lifeline. She still is my lifeline.
That is a great friend.
Yeah.
You want to go through life. You want to have Takesha.
You want to have
Takesha as your friend.
Yes, you do.
I'll tell you what, you got to give me Takesha's number after this. Because if I need some help doing something.
She's a nurse now. Can you believe that?
If there's something illegally or illegally, I'm calling Takesha because what she did there through your high school now, she'd probably be facing some charges. Just food for thought, Takesha. If you're listening, might not be such a good idea to put that out there. Although the statutes of limitation, I'm sure, are gone. And you've turned out very well. Yeah. So, Takesha, good job.
I love you, Keisha.
Boy. So your best friend's taking care of you.
Yeah,
your mom
friend took care of me all through high school. That girl, she took care of me through high school. I mean, granted, she couldn't take off every single day, but she did. Hey, she took care of me when she could, especially when I started driving and I would pick her up for school. So if I picked her up if I wasn't going to school that day, I'd be like, "Hey, I'm not feeling well," and she'd be like, "Oh, good. I guess me neither."
Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you were her ride,
yeah.
So you after high school, you're in high school. You get through there. Obviously, you graduated because of you couldn't go to college if you didn't graduate.
Right.
You graduate. Where'd you go to college?
Los Angeles.
Oh, great move! Great move to go across the country with all these health issues. And now you have no Takesha to help you here.
Takesha.
So unless she came with you, did she come with you?
She didn't come.
Okay, so
I went by myself.
You went by yourself? Not even a boyfriend?
No.
Wow.
No,
Did you want to be an actor or an actress?
No. I am. So my love for the fashion industry
Okay.
has been since I was 4.
Okay.
I've loved the fashion industry, and at first I wanted to be a fashion designer, but then I realized I didn't love sewing. So I initially went to fashion school for product development.
Mhm.
And so I went to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in downtown Los Angeles. I initially was looking at schools in Miami and in New York City, looking at FIT and Parsons and all the big design schools. However, I guess because I had experience going to California to visit my aunt.
Mhm.
At this point, she was no longer living in California, but I had gone a lot during the summer
Okay.
to visit her. So I loved it.
Right.
And when I asked my mom where it would be a good fit for me to go, when I was looking at these schools, she felt that California would be the best of the options because being 18, she thought that me being in New York City at 18 would be horrendous.
Have you seen California?
Well, back in 2003, it wasn't like that.
It's kind of shaky, Los Angeles. Still then it was a little bit. But then how your mom telling you to go?
Yeah.
That's because that.
Well,
she's
she
probably
didn't
wanted to
really
keep
tell
you-
me to go. I actually applied to I called the school and started my application before I told anybody.
Okay, but even so, your mom letting you go chase your dreams.
Yeah.
It says a lot for your mom too now, because now you're out of that. You're out of the house, single mother now. You know, I don't know what
She at that
married?
time she had a boyfriend.
Okay. So it wasn't so bad then. She's probably like, "Hey, you got to go get out," just to leave,
yeah.
to go out experience
Yes.
life now, because you were home for so many years.
Yes, I was home, but I was also when I was healthy and had my healthy days, like which I did have a lot of good days. Like I said, summer times are always better for me than school time.
Right.
I think it's just because now that I know that's how stress impacts my immune system, and being that my immune system was so rocky. So being in school, obviously there's more stress because of school and grades
Mhm.
and so by my junior year, I was no longer doing any type of extracurricular activity. So I didn't have to worry about cheerleading practice or anything. So my junior year summer was probably the best time of my life because I actually did a lot during that summer, and I was a big nomad. Me and my friends, we would go down to Jersey and Wildwood and had all the fun and slept out of our cars. We were nomads. That's all.
Wow.
Yeah. And that actually is what kind of started to spark my adventurous side of like, wow, all these things that I missed out on, like I'm having this experience now. And like, I mean, I was also like it's like aside from being like sick, I also would go to the clubs on Saturday nights and Friday nights from the time I was a freshman, like freshman summer.
Okay.
So like it was like health issues, but like I said, it was like they'd be up and they'd be terrible. And then I would force my way to come out because I was
Mhm.
always so determined that even when I was sick, I would get better and then so that I could go be normal.
So let me ask you: do you think? Okay, so you had health issues, but do you think you being able to supersede those health issues, to go out like you said, to have a good time, to party on the weekends and do whatever? Do you think that your mental state of saying, "I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do," kind of tamp down those sicknesses?
Yes, because I always needed to have something to look forward to. And I'm still like that.
Mhm.
I have to know that like I have to know that there's something exciting on the other end.
So you need a why in your life.
Oh yes.
Mhm.
Oh yes. My purpose is everything, and that's partly my mission. That's why my mission is the way it's truly been cultivated. Now that we're having this conversation, is
Mhm.
I've been cultivating that pain into purpose
Right.
since I was a kid because I just always had to have like I always had to have something to look forward to or something to be excited about. And even if my illness took 3 weeks or a month to get through, I knew that on the other side of that, I'd bounce back.
Right. So, well, that's important because if you were to spiral, it could get, well, you could always come to Keisha to help you out.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you spiraled out of control where you thought there wasn't, hopelessness is the worst.
Oh, it is.
When you don't have any hope there, that is the absolute worst.
Yep.
Where you think that you can't get through something, can't get by this, you're going to sit here in your house and do that. That is the absolute worst.
Yeah.
You experience it at your age at that time and doing what you've done shows you that, yeah, you might need that why, but your mental makeup is on a different level.
Yes.
Because you're able to go through that and say, you know what? Yes, I've been here before. I didn't, I got the t-shirt. I'm moving on to something else.
Yeah.
Which is important. Well, it's important to anything, but when you're physically unable to do it, that's a lot more of a hill to climb.
Yes.
So you go to California, you go to school.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was pretty good.
Did you go to 4 years?
I went, so my school was a 2-year program.
Okay.
And it was a very intensive, it was a trade school. So it's very hands-on. For fashion.
Okay.
So I went initially for product development, and the living there was way different than I was ever expecting it to be. First of all, it wasn't like a regular, like UC State College where you get a dorm and you're living on campus.
So meaning you weren't living on campus.
No.
So you had to get an apartment.
Yes.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And
that wasn't included in tuition, I'm sure.
No. No meal plan.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. No meal plan. No, nothing.
So now go back to what we're talking about, eating healthy.
Yeah.
You don't have many options. You don't have much money going on there.
Right.
So now it's a whole different world for you.
Yeah.
How was your first year there?
So
did you want to come back when you first left?
When I first left, I actually hated Los Angeles. I hated it. But because I had everything go wrong that you could think of. My mom would not let me have my car. And she wanted me to just rely on public transportation, which I understand. I'm 18 and moving to Los Angeles from Berwick.
There's no Uber drivers around here.
Right. Well, there wasn't Uber drivers back then either.
Think about it. There could be transportation here. Rabbit guy or whatever. There's no Uber. So over there, you're taking taxi, trolley. I guess they have a trolley.
Bus and a subway. That's okay. But within the first week of me living there, the buses went on strike. We had a transit strike. We had a grocery store strike.
Oh, jeez.
And
a grocery store strike.
Yeah. There was like the picketers because of the union, because the grocery workers there are part of the union and they wanted benefits.
You should have gotten out of California as fast as that next plane. You should have gotten out of that state. Do you live there now still?
Yeah.
I'm
here, but yes, I still have my home there. Yes.
God, I can't. California is striking. You're a grocery store. You're scanning items. You do it yourself now. You scan your own items.
Yeah. Right.
Going on strike. Okay.
And I luckily got blessed with an amazing roommate because the apartment complex that they put us in were part of student housing. And of course,
that's not bad.
Yeah. But like when I went and toured my college campus and I looked at, so there were 3 apartments we could choose from to live at.
Right.
And so I looked at the 2 that I thought would be closest. I didn't even consider looking at the 3rd one because it was the furthest away. And of course, that's the one that I got, the one that was furthest away. And
you're really striking out. First year.
And the worst part was that, so 4 of us are in this 2-bedroom apartment and none of us have a car and we all have to get to school.
How'd you get to school?
I had to go out and meet people that lived in my complex that
What
went to
the
my
heck?
school.
What were you thinking?
And so that's how I got to school. I met people to help me get to school.
You were a hustler.
I
could
really
tell you.
was. I really was. I was like, when there's a will, there's a way.
I don't want to hear any kid ever tell me again, I can't get to here or I can't. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll figure it out.
You
can
will.
figure it out.
You will. And remember, like we didn't
That's
have
a great story.
Thank you.
That is a great story. Finding because who wouldn't, you know, think about no really with text messages or whatever, no Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you could do a group where, hey, I'm in this group. Hey, you're going to school at this time.
We didn't
Can't do that. Can't do that.
Yeah, we didn't have that back then. We had dial-up internet.
Oh, AOL. Yeah.
And flip phones.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Or I had the Nokia. My roommate had the flip phone Motorola. And you know,
man, the Razor.
Yes.
Big then.
I think that's what she had.
Yeah.
And like,
you know, Google Map, not the Google Maps, was that MapQuest.
Yes.
You had to print it out and hope it was close.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, God.
And that's how, I mean, because my school was 30 minutes away.
30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now someone who you hope goes to your class, going to your school
at the same time,
get you, and then how you getting home?
Same.
You know, same thing.
We'd all be talking about it in the car. So even if we didn't have the same schedule, like who has class until 5 o'clock? Who has class until 9 o'clock? How are we getting home?
Let alone eating and everything else.
Right.
In the middle of this.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Boy.
Yes. And at the time, my roommate decided that she wanted to start the Atkins diet. So we did the Atkins diet for about 3 months or 2 months. Yeah, both of us.
Okay.
So that was it, just really funny because we're over here making burgers and no bones. Probably the best thing that I could have done for myself, because I think that's how I was able to get through college. Now that I'm a carnivore now, and I look at how that diet was so good for me then. And now that's what I'm actually doing now, but for different reasons. But that to me is why I think I felt really good through my first quarter of college.
And that's something that I want to transition into here. So you're going through college, you're done with college. Let's go to where you're done with college.
Yeah.
Now, did you have, from what I remember, I don't know if you had a breast cancer?
Yes.
Okay. That is at what point?
28. I got diagnosed at 28.
Okay. That's after college, obviously you're in your career. Were you still having health issues?
Yeah. So they became, after, I would say, after college, because I only did that Atkins stint for about 3 months, and then
but you felt good.
But I felt good. But then I went back to my regular way of eating, and I would say,
were you heavy or no?
Yeah, a little bit.
You were heavy?
I was heavier. I was heavy, like, because I used to drink a lot. Once I got to college, I was drinking a lot of beers and eating a lot of gluten. And being in California, you're surrounded by great Mexican food. And so I was eating a lot.
But you know what? You're surrounded also by everyone in shape.
Yes.
So it's kind of like a catch-22. It's like, do you want to be the fat guy, or do you want to be the guy in shape that doesn't eat much? And you know what I mean?
Yeah, but back then I did my first year in LA, which I think is why I was so all about being thin. But then I moved to San Diego. San Diego is a completely different vibe.
Great place to live.
A great place to live, but they're not as body conscious.
Okay.
So people are there just living life, and it's kind of very, zen, and just everybody's doing their thing. And I wouldn't say I was ever fat, but I was definitely, like, now that I look back at pictures, I can see the inflammation in my body. But at the same time, I kind of look and say, well, heck, I don't know which is better, like have some inflammation and getting to like live a life and
right. It is a lifestyle.
Yes.
It is a lifestyle because so as I want to get in a little further here, you go into when you discover you have breast cancer, number one, it's got to be an ultimate shock to your body. Whereas you're like, holy cow, or and to your mental state.
Yeah.
Because immediately you think the worst. Me,
Of
something happens
course.
to me, I immediately WebMD. I've got,
Yeah.
the stage 4 can't, I'm thinking I've got it. But then when your doctor actually tells you you do.
Yeah.
Okay, so take me back to that day.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm gonna back up
And you
just
don't
a
care
little
about
bit.
talking about it.
I
Okay.
no, I before the Lyme, I used to write articles, and I have a lot of different um, papers and whatnot that I've written about my breast cancer journey, because it again, if I can raise awareness about this, this is really important.
Mhm.
So I had, well, even though I had all these health issues,
Mhm.
I got diagnosed with breast cancer in May of 2013. But even though I had these like wax and wane health issues throughout my college life and then into my 20s, they were all pretty low grade. But once I got to December 2011, I was working in the fashion industry, and I came home from work one night and I had stroke like symptoms. And I was really stressed because I was trying to hit some sales goals. And we went to the hospital. My boyfriend at the time drove me to the hospital. They thought I was having a stroke because my blood pressure was super high. My face was kind of drooping, and the left side of my face was drooping. I had no feeling in my left hand. And from that day, it took me back emotionally to my freshman year in high school, because from that day, I thought I was going to die on the way to the hospital. But then it opened up Pandora's box of like, okay, well, why is she having these symptoms? And it took them, so from December 2011 to December 2012, I went to see a million different doctors, and we all found little fragments of things. And I finally got to see a GI doctor, because at this point, still never tested me for Lyme, but they wanted to say that I had early symptoms of MS, which
Oh,
Lyme mimics MS.
yeah.
Didn't know that at the time. So I get to December 2012, and I find out that I have this autoimmune issue in my esophagus called eosinophilic esophagitis. And that explained why my whole childhood, why I was having all these mysterious allergies. So I thought, oh my gosh, I finally got to the root of all of my allergies and my random like throat swelling and impactions and all these interesting autoimmune issues that I was having. That's the root. So I finally think, okay, took me a year. So we're at December 2012. We got a whole year of testing to find out that I have eosinophilic esophagitis. And I have to go get allergy tested.
Yeah.
So I go and get allergy tested in January. And then at the same time, I'm cutting out all these foods. My right nipple starts bleeding. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is definitely probably just a hormonal thing, because I have went to every single doctor in Cedars-Sinai in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
And if there was something more, we would have found it by now, because I went to every doctor. And so I ignore it. But I'm starting to notice, through February, March, and April, that I'm getting stains on my bra and I'm losing weight. And I'm thinking, well, it's because I'm on this new elimination diet. Because when we found out what I was allergic to soy and gluten and dairy and like flaxseed and gluten, or what else? It was like gluten. I don't know, like all these random things. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just stop this. So one day I woke up in April and I felt really sick. like really sick, like as if I had just been poisoned. And I had a really weird allergic reaction the night before at a restaurant to something that I ate all the time. Never thought anything of it. But the next day, I could not even hold water down. And so when I got in the shower, my nipple opened up and I literally just gushed blood all over the bathtub. So I immediately, my boyfriend at the time just wrapped me up in a towel, got me dressed as quick as he could, and drove me to the emergency room. They did a bunch of tests. They didn't find anything.
Oh,
So they just tell me to follow up with my primary care. And so she sends me to, so I did, and she sends me to oncology, which like a surgical oncologist. There, so I meet my new surgical oncologist who is wonderful. She biopsies the blood
right.
that's coming out. She does a mammogram. She does an ultrasound. The blood, the ultrasound, the mammogram, all 3 tests came back negative.
How is that possible?
Right. Because, well, when a lot of women who haven't had children and are in their 20s have dense breasts. So there's often that imaging can't pick that up. So that was actually something really shocking because so she thought, oh, it's just a benign growth or it's like a papilloma. No big deal. We're just going to go into surgically biopsy this.
But your blood work was normal.
Yes.
White blood cells fine.
Yep.
Wow.
Blood work was fine. The mammogram was fine.
I can see the mammogram being false. But if the blood work comes back, white blood cells fine, everything's good.
Yeah.
That's weird to me.
Yeah.
That's very strange.
Yeah. So when it was also my boyfriend at the time, we were actually in the middle of breaking up. All this is happening.
Boy, you really
Yeah.
Oh, you did it good out there in California.
Yeah, I sure did. And so we were in the middle of a breakup when this all happened. And it was me. Like I'm the one that initiated the breakup. So
Okay.
So when like I remember the day that I had to go to my visit to get my results back. Because so when she also wanted to do a surgical biopsy to make my nipple stop bleeding. And so she's like, well, we need to remove whatever is causing it to be bleeding. And I also want to just kind of go in there and just make sure, do a biopsy just to make sure that there is no cancerous growth or any cancer cells growing. So that is what saved my life. Her wanting to actually go in there and biopsy it. So the day that being that I was so quick to get out of this relationship, I was like, I kept saying to the guy that I was dating, I was like, you don't have to come with me to get my results. And he's like, I won't feel really comfortable leaving you unless I know what is going on with you health wise. So I'm going to come with you to your appointment.
Right.
And I, out of respect for him, I mean, he's a really wonderful person. And it wasn't like we were ending because we were on bad terms. It was just, we were not in alignment with a lot of things at that time. So he went with me and I'm really glad that he did because I'll never forget, I'm sitting there on this table in this robe waiting for my results, thinking that everything's fine because every test was normal. And I just remember she walked into the room and I was like, I just, quickly like opened up my gown. I was like, look, it's healing perfectly. You did great. Da, da, da. Okay, I'm going to put my clothes back on. I have to go to work now. And she's like, oh, better sit back on that table, Angela. And I was like, why? She's like, I don't know how to say this because this is a 1% chance happening, but your biopsies came back positive for cancer. And I just remember, even though I was sitting under these bright fluorescent lights in this doctor's office, that entire room went dark. Like the entire room, I swear, just went black. And I felt like I was just in the middle of outer space. And even though my doctor was standing right next to me, and my situation with my, I don't even know what to call him because he was like my boyfriend, but he wasn't my boyfriend, but the guy was Sean, his name was Sean, like was sitting right in front of me.
Right.
But it felt like they were miles away. And I was just sitting there like, how is this? I've been going through so much low grade and, these low grade infections and inflammations and these roller coasters now to hit this wall of now I have breast cancer. Like, does it ever end?
I could just tell it bothers you. Well, not bothers you. You're emotional now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're reliving something
Yeah.
that was that, and I appreciate you being an open book.
Yeah, I'm so open about it because I do love sharing it because I really want people to be advocates for themselves.
And you had no lump at all, nothing.
Nothing. And I wasn't even sure if I was even a candidate for like a lumpectomy or anything like that. So she's like, let's just do an MRI and see what's going on if it shows up in an MRI. So we did an MRI and it lit up. She said it lit up like a Christmas tree. And we have to, there was no choice. The tumor was spread. So luckily it just didn't spread to my lymph nodes. It spread the opposite way, which is very rare. And she's like, but there's no way we can get it all out. So we have to do a mastectomy. So we did that 2 months later.
And that's at 28.
Yep.
So at 28 now, as a woman,
and about to be newly single woman.
Newly single woman. That's got to be rough.
Oh, it was such an emotional.
Yeah.
So emotional. I mean, and I will say that he's my ex now, but at that time we ended up working things out. And because that was the big, at that time was I felt like because I was having all these weird symptoms that felt like he didn't really take my health issues very seriously. And that was why I was ending things with him because I did have all those random mysterious health issues, even in our relationship. And so when you're asking me earlier, like it didn't really bother me and it didn't really affect my relationships in high school or middle school, but it did affect them when I got older because especially because he was 2 years younger than me. So I'm 28, he's 26. And we were together for 2 years. So he was 24 and I was 26. He was still in his like party phase. And I wanted to still be in our party phase, but my health was starting to catch up to me. And his, he still wanted to live his life, which I can't blame him. But I was not on that page anymore. And so that was why I was ending things with him. So it was something that I had to talk, like now that he saw that, oh, hey, well, look, like I'm not just being a Debbie Downer here on the party. I've been struggling and it's catching up. And now you see it's manifested into cancer. So we can get through it together or we cannot, but whatever it is, I was kind of like, I have to do it. I have to get through it. So whether you're either in or you're out.
Yeah. So he moved on from that, you were with him for a little bit longer after that.
Yeah. He stepped up to the plate. He was amazing. And I will, to this to this day and forever send him so much love and gratitude
Do
for
you
stepping
speak
in.
to him anymore?
Well, we did until he got married and his wife will not let him. We were actually we stayed really good friends up until he met his current wife. And
Mhm.
then she decided that he was no longer allowed to be my friend.
It does tend to happen every now and then. It
Yeah.
does.
And I
But
wanted to be her friend. Like
Mhm.
I was really happy when he told me he met someone. Genuinely. Like I I do care about him
Right.
but and I wanted to meet her and be her friend. I mean, I didn't need to be her best friend, but
Mhm.
I was happy that, like, if I can't love you the way you deserve to be loved, I want you to find that
Mhm.
person to love you the way that you deserve,
Right.
you know? And doesn't mean that we have to hate each other for it. There was no abuse or, like, it wasn't like like he didn't cheat on me and
Mhm.
like there was
You were just on different pages.
yeah, we were just on different pages. We
Mhm.
were and my cancer journey just again like took me into a completely different direction
Right.
and so we just started to grow apart.
Mhm.
And so going through the diagnosis and the mastectomy and the reconstruction surgery and just trying to find this normalcy, well, also every other immune issue that I had from the past then started to rear its head. So it wasn't like I just had the cancer.
Mhm.
I was having all the rashes, the histamine reactions, the allergic reactions, going into anaphylactic shock all the time, which was like this whole thing. So again, I was constantly in the hospital like once I had that cancer and I was going to the allergist and he was doing more diagnostic allergy testing and I was still going, I was still like I was getting becoming more allergic to more and more foods. And because we didn't know that I had this underlying Lyme diagnosis that then I recently found out that breast cancer is also a symptom of Lyme. Mast cell activation, eosinophilic esophagitis, those are all symptoms of Lyme disease.
So technically, if you think about it, is there a cure for Lyme disease or no?
You can put it into remission, and
It's a
that's where I'm
remission.
at right now.
Okay, so would the Lyme disease that you got, now you're talking years ago, would it have manifested into breast cancer if
Yes.
would have.
Yes.
So no matter what, it was going into breast cancer.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a hard, how do you stop that?
Right. Well, because I was also living because I didn't know that I had Lyme and I always like to push myself to the limit. So my I was also like stressing myself out. I had a high stress job. I graduated college. I was working in the fashion industry and I was a personal stylist for a well-known department store and I had, sales goals and I was drinking, I wasn't eating the cleanest diet. I was constantly inflamed, eating foods that I was allergic to, so that
Mhm.
creates more inflammation and as we know, cancer feeds off of our inflammatory markers and,
Yeah. Stress is one of the
stress.
biggest
Yes.
factors.
Yes.
Not only does it affect you physically, mentally, physically, there is a known study that says that you can have a stress heart attack with your arteries clogged without having a food issue.
Yep.
And they're usually ones that are thinner and in shape. Their stress levels are to the roof.
Yep.
Although I do think lack of exercise is a part of that. But also, I've known people who have had to get divorced. Their doctor tell them, you have to get divorced because
Mhm.
this stress is too much on you.
Yep.
You got to leave. I don't care.
Yes.
He's like, I don't care if you guys are friends or what. You got to get divorced because you
Yes.
can't live together.
Yes.
And that is a huge, huge problem. Stress is a big problem in our country. A lot of it is because of the levels that we have to try to obtain. I think social
Mm.
media has really put us into a pedestal of like, you got to be up here. Most of that stuff's fake anyway.
Right.
You know, they put the pictures of themselves in Maui, and they can't get along at
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
You know, they're sleeping in separate rooms. You know,
Totally.
so we have to really, I think, go back and look at ourselves and say, is this the life we want to live, or is it not the life we want to live?
Totally.
Because at the end of the day, we have our health. They could take all the money, they could take the cars, they could take the jewelry, they could take the house, but your health that's it. This is the only cathedral you have.
Yeah.
So let's go back now to you. Now after your diagnosis is done. What did you do to kind of, well, obviously you had the surgery.
Yes.
Are you cancer free at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
I
So they
didn't-
did. So they did get it, everything.
Yes.
Okay.
When they did the mastectomy, that's when I would say the first time in my life that I ever, like, you'd think that with all these health issues that I would ever think that I was close to death. But I never really viewed myself to be that close to death. I just thought I was sick. But this was the first time that I remember that I felt like I dodged a bullet. And I'll never forget, I woke up in my hospital bed the next day, and my oncologist came in and told me about the mastectomy. And she said, well, we got all the cancer, your lymph nodes were clear. She said, Angela, your tumor was 10 centimeters. 10 centimeters, which is like almost 5 inches, I think, she said. And she said, I don't know how you got so lucky for it to not hit your lymph nodes, but she said, usually with this type of cancer, you never have a bleeding nipple. And had you not had that nipple bleeding, we would have never had an excuse to go in there because there was no lump, there was a reason. And she said, had this size of a tumor, and she said it was very aggressive because they had tested it for, like, I think it was necrosis. And she said that if it would have hit my lymph nodes, I would have had 4 months to live. And, like, she said, you were so lucky. And I just remember in that moment, like, wow, how did I, like, and at the same time, I remember feeling so happy, but also kind of feeling guilty. Like, gosh, like something in that inside of me shifted that day of really just questioning my health, my happiness, my life. Like, I had a whole life altering review, like a life review just went through my brain because I thought not everybody gets this chance of having this cancer found early. 90% of cancers are often found too late.
Yeah.
And they found mine early, so they were able to get it all. And I didn't have to have chemo or radiation. Thank goodness. But I mean, the mastectomy was enough.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely did it. You know, one of my doctor friends told me, cancer is so sneaky because it doesn't hurt.
Right.
Until it's too late.
Right.
You know, I know a friend of mine had cancer, and somehow the only time, and he didn't know it until it hit his spine.
Yes.
And then it was too late. Doctor's like, you can't go in.
Right.
So that's why it's so sneaky. Then also you have the Lyme disease.
Yes. Undiagnosed,
unknown. Obviously there's issues. We don't know. But the fact that you did the blood work and all that other stuff, it's just that sneaky little thing.
Right.
It's sneaky dodging a bullet. You talk about dodging a bullet. This thing is like, it's like, that little guy that keeps squirming around trying to find, and also you can't figure out what it is, and you get it, and it's still slippery and slimy because you don't know, and you're trying to contain it.
Right. And nobody ever checked me for it in California.
Lyme. And that's another thing. I mean, how many times I've gone through of people saying, well, I didn't get checked for Lyme disease. I have Lyme disease. I would think that'd be one of the first things, especially considering where you came from, outdoors and stuff like that. But it didn't. So you're now done with your cancer free. When do you start your life journey on your health and wellness?
So,
Now, obviously, you had right then you had that epiphany to say, okay, something's got to change.
yep,
Because if this ain't going to change me, this is going to change me.
yep,
So I have to make the choice. So
yes,
the good thing is, you look in the mirror, it's your problem.
yeah,
But the bad thing is, you look in the mirror, it's still your problem.
yes,
So you have to decide.
yep,
Okay, you looking in the mirror, you're saying, what is my next move?
yeah. So I was on a leave of work from the store that I was working at. Like, thankfully, they really took care of me.
Mhm.
They gave me a leave. They gave me they held my position.
And that's another
And
part financially.
yeah,
That's you're adding
yeah,
stress there too.
right.
Whether they took care of you, great or not, you said they did.
Financially,
Financially,
they did though.
yeah, but I'm saying, like, if they didn't,
Oh my god.
here it is, another
Yes.
layer of
Yes.
compression on top of already a stressful situation.
Yes. I mean, I
So
have to
you've been
say,
blessed.
I've been very
tremendously.
blessed, especially because I worked on commission.
Oh,
And so the way that you work when you're on commission, when you are dealing with like any type of disability work, it's the average of what you make
mhm.
on 6 months. And luckily, when I got diagnosed, the last 6 months were from Christmas.
Oh, wow. Wow. Boy,
Like
you hit it good there.
like Christmas through May. And I had a very prosperous 6 months. So
Awesome.
my average was a decent rate so that I
Okay.
could substantially, I think for me personally, and having a boyfriend who was working full time. And then additionally, they covered my health insurance. So I didn't have to even pay for my health insurance. And I had
Mhm.
really great health insurance.
Yeah.
And because of everything, my deductible and everything was already met. So all of my stuff was covered 100%.
Right.
I had decent bill, like I had decent medical, I had really good medical coverage, and I had a decent, not like the best, but decent for somebody who's not working, if
And for 28 years
for
old.
28
I
years
mean,
old. And I had and I had my boyfriend who was also working full time, but he did really well. So I was so blessed that we didn't struggle
mhm.
on that end. But what happened was I started to think about, okay, well, I'm like literally living my life in a hospital gown at this point, or I'm living in sweats, or not even sweats. Like I couldn't even put pants on because I had hospital gowns on all the time, and I had to wear because of when you have a mastectomy, you can't, everything has to be super loose. You can't really wear certain things because when they do reconstruction on you, they are taking, like, they had to take like fat from parts of my body
Yeah.
and to put it into my breast
Mhm.
to reconstruct it. So because of that, I had to wear certain garments. And so which would leave me just basically like barely really able to wear anything.
And clearly probably very uncomfortable.
It was though, yeah, I mean, you're just so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about, well, because we have to start thinking about when am I going to go back to work? And I just remember just with my mom, and I just felt, I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But the thought of going back to work and dressing people externally and making sure that they look the best,
Mhm.
like, I didn't really excite me anymore. Like, I didn't really care about the designer jeans, the things that I would like. That big part of the fashion industry was,
Mhm.
it's like, what jeans are you wearing and why and what cut and what shirt, and everything was just so
So the
external and materialistic.
how you looked, um, or how you perceived, you're giving off that this is how I look, I'm looking good. That didn't light that flame anymore for you?
It did, but not putting it into someone else. And that was what my life was about, was
Right.
making sure that everybody else looked good, and it just didn't make me feel like, I just remember saying, I don't even care what pair of pants I wear anymore. I
Mhm.
just want to be able to put on a pair.
Right.
I don't care what designer it is. I just want to dress up. I just want to wear something
Mhm.
that makes me feel good. But I was so wrapped up into the brands and the designers and the material.
Mhm.
It was very much like, I mean, I've always had a good heart, but just I had a passion for the fashion industry. That's what brought me to LA. So these brands were everything to me. I mean, having a pair of designer jeans was like, you know, I gotta get
Yeah.
these jeans.
Mhm.
And that lit me up. And having that designer bag, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
lit me up. Those Christian Louboutin shoes were like the red soles. Those were my everything.
I don't know what they are. I never wore those.
Well, I mean, those shoes were like $1,500
Oh,
shoes.
well, that's why I didn't wear them.
Yeah. And so, but like, that's what was so important. Like, that was important to me.
Which again
And
goes back to what that was your why at that
yes,
point.
yes. And I felt that like everybody had to wear those things to feel good,
Mhm.
until that got stripped of me and made me realize that doesn't really, it's not it's not what brand I'm wearing. It's not what I'm wearing. Well, I guess it also took away for how are you feeling? Never
Mhm.
really actually knew how I was feeling at that point, because I made sure that everybody else always looked good and
Mhm. And now it was time for you to look
to
good.
look good.
Mhm.
And at that point, no designer is going to make me feel good. It's, I mean, maybe it would have, but I was so focused on just when you have so little to work with, when like you're just literally all you can wear is a hospital gown and you're living in the hospital, like
I think
you just
I
have,
think you realize that um the looking good outside externally with the new clothes and whatever, that's very temporary.
yes,
You're with that, what, 8 hours a day?
yes,
But you're with yourself 24/7,
yes,
365.
yes,
So you now have to make a choice. How did you how did you
yeah.
decide to make the choice?
Well,
Because you were living a certain way for so long.
yeah,
And yes, you knew hospital visits, you knew being ill, you knew this, but you didn't know Lyme disease yet. And now you're making your own choice. So you're now self-diagnosing yourself to say, I felt best when I was this. So how did you
yeah.
discover this the diet of a carnivore diet?
Okay. Well, that's a little further away,
Oh,
but the
okay. No,
carnivore diet,
but
but
let's go back to where you were. I thought this was your transition into
it is a transition, but not to
okay.
carnivore.
Okay.
It's
So
a
it's something
transition
different.
to where I'm at now,
Okay.
um, with my career and how it shifted my
Okay.
whole life. So once that happened and I started to think like, I feel like I have a greater purpose here
Mhm.
than just dressing people and working in this store, even though the store gave me a lot, I just felt like, I guess it's that part of that
Did you feel
epiphany.
unfulfilled
Yeah,
at some
everything
point?
was just becoming like, like the thought of going back to that job felt really unfulfilling, but it also made me feel like, okay, I didn't go through all of this to just go backwards. And also, I kind of had this trauma of, well, what if like I can't really go back to the place that, what if that was one of the causes that I got sick? Because at that time I thought
Mhm.
maybe from all the stress from working there, why do I want to go back and do the same thing and get sick again?
Was it stressful because of the demands
Yes, it was very demanding.
from up top or from the customers?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I mean, I have up top stressing me for sales goals,
Mhm.
big sales goals. And then working in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills with the most demanding
Yeah.
clientele.
Mhm.
And then my clientele specifically were like, I worked with a lot of celebrities and people of status. that when they wanted something,
they wanted yesterday.
They wanted it yesterday. I have to go to the Grammys tonight. I'm like, well, why didn't you come in here a week ago? And now you want me to find this suit, get it altered, and get you out the door in an hour? I can do miracles, but I'm not God.
Yeah, that'd be a little tough. That'd be a little tough.
And I would do it. And it would, because I needed the sale.
Yeah.
So we had people that were always working and helping and supporting us. But it was a lot because we had these certain sales goals. And one of the big sales goals was that at the end of the year, you wanted to make something called Paysetter, which was like the top 20% of the company. And being that I'd worked there so long, I finally hit that goal. So now that you hit that goal, you want to maintain it and just keep going with
and
it.
That's the hardest thing to do, is maintain.
Yes.
It's not easy. It's easier to be the hunter.
Yes.
And then when you're the hunted, you're already at the top. It's tough to get up in the morning in silk pajamas and go jogging.
Yes. Yes.
So it's that mentality now. It's like, okay, so you worked those late hours, you did all this stuff, you're there, and now you got to maintain that level, if not improve by 10%.
Yes.
It's
so stressful.
It's stressful that you just were like, you know what? Enough.
Yes. And given, that was the thing, like, just, when you're sick, you have a lot of time to just sit. And I also will say I didn't have social media. I mean, I think I maybe just started an Instagram, but Instagram was just for posting random pictures at that time. It wasn't anything to scroll on. So I really stared at my walls a lot.
And that can't be good.
Yeah.
That can't be good, because it'd be like solitary confinement in prison.
Yeah. I mean,
essentially you are in a prison. You're in a prison because what are you going to do?
Yes.
So you can't, I don't even think, was Netflix even out?
It just came out. So we did a lot of Redbox.
Redbox of all things, probably kids listening to this don't even know what Redbox is.
Yeah.
My kid would not know.
Yeah.
I could tell you right now, he wouldn't.
Yeah.
So, at that point you have to do something. You have to, for your own mental well-being.
Yeah.
If not for your own sanity.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, like I said, I had so many things that were going on post-cancer. So I was seeing multiple doctors, and those doctor visits were every single day. And for about a year and a half, I was in Cedars-Sinai, where sometimes from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m, because I'd have to go for physical therapy. I had to go for follow-ups. Now because I was having all these random rashes, now I'm in dermatology. Now I'm back at allergy because I'm having all these anaphylactic reactions. Now I'm in the cancer rehab doing, because now I have pain in my shoulders from all of this, from the mastectomy. So it was just all of these things. And then they offered classes, which I was so grateful for, because we had something called a chemo brain. Even though I didn't have chemo, I had drastic issues with my brain, and brain fog and memory issues and cognitive issues. And they offered a holistic wellness program. So I was going to that and learning about nutrition. And then we had psychosocial support groups that were also really helpful in my journey. So going through all of this, and I'm trying to figure out what it is that I'm cultivating from all of this. And I was still going into, but the worst part was through all of this was that I was getting really, really, really bad with my anaphylactic reactions. And I was still having all of these reactions. And that was when I didn't know at the time was called mast cell activation syndrome, which happens when your body is super inflamed because it's fighting an underlying infection, pathogen, or toxin.
Okay.
And it creates a huge increase in histamine in your body. So the foods that you are usually used to, that are safe to eat, are creating these, they're called pseudo reactions, because the body can't break down the histamine that is being produced by these foods when your body's digesting it.
Okay, now that word histamine,
Mm-hmm.
I hear that a lot in the medical
Yes.
What is that exactly?
So histamine, it's a
Stuff that's in, I don't know if it's in like a pain medication or it's
so
something.
antihistamine. So like for example, so histamine is what creates it's the like I guess you could say it's like a chemical in our body that is created when an allergen is being exposed or when we are exposed to something that shouldn't be harmful, the body sees it as a threat. So that's why people are having these allergic reactions because these foods they're becoming allergic to.
Okay.
And so when you are allergic to something, the body will create histamine as a protection mechanism.
Okay.
And often, right now, what's happening is that people are thinking that they have these true food allergies, which are like I don't know if it's like IgE or IgM reactions. Like it's a true immune system reaction, like peanut allergies or like a seafood allergy or something that you were born dust allergy, stuff like that, pollen.
Right.
Those are real reactions. But you can have something called a histamine intolerance, which means that there are certain genetics that we are made up of that can cause someone to be more sensitive to things that maybe they're not allergic to, but they are intolerant to. And that intolerance can build up the histamine in their body. And once that histamine is built up almost like a bucket, think of it like a bucket. So every time you eat something that's high in histamine, it fills the bucket, fills the bucket, fills the bucket. And then one day you're eating something that's high in histamine, and then you eat it, and now all of a sudden that bucket overflows, and now you're having histamine issues. So you're thinking, oh my God, it's this food.
Right.
And it wasn't that food, it was the culmination of the foods that you were eating that you were intolerant to that just created this overflow of histamine in the body. The higher toxic load that you have, the higher the histamine bucket. Because the problem with these certain genetic types is that these people that carry these certain genes, they can't granulate that histamine. They can't break it down.
Okay.
So they have to take certain supplements to help break it down. They have to make sure that they're detoxing. And unfortunately, when you have something like cancer or Lyme or mold toxicities, these just create more pathogens, so a greater toxic load. So the greater the toxic load, the greater the histamine that's being produced.
Okay. So when they say beta histamine, they can artificially put it into your body?
No, so they can you can take like a Zysol or Allegra.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
but so it's all to do with the allergies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want a certain amount in your body?
No, you really don't want any histamine in your body. I mean, you don't, we will have histamine growing in our body just
Because we're allergic to something that we've taken.
yeah, we might be, or like we might be exposed to something, but
So is it a constant battle with your body?
yes, for me, yes, but
Okay, that's what
most
I'm
people
saying.
don't. Most
Okay.
people don't have that type of response because, their mitochondria, their cells are working just fine and they eat something and their gut health is good. So they can eat whatever they want and they don't have any reaction.
So how'd you get the lottery?
Right. So that's the big thing. And so all the foods my whole life that I've been eating were just causing these low grade histamine flares that I didn't know that were just causing more and more inflammation because I had Lyme and God knows what else at the time. So that was just, so here I had cancer. Now they put implants in me and I still have them. I have to get rid of them, but that was just a whole Pandora's box that got reopened. So now I started going into anaphylaxis over everything I was eating, even the foods I was making myself. So
But why do you have to get rid of like the implants and stuff like that? Is it just affecting your
because the implants are what I've learned recently is that the implant I have silicone implants and they have a black box warning on them and that the plastics and everything carry a lot of toxins and bacteria, and which can cause a lot of inflammation in the body to people that have this genetic response. They're just really toxic, and those toxins that make up the silicone in the implant itself, because it's not natural, seep into your bloodstream at a chronic low level. And for somebody that has my genetic type, should not have any type of artificial anything like that in their body.
Okay. So that takes me to my next question here. So as you're doing this, are you studying this yourself by doing this your whole self, doing everything, all the research, all this, everything? So you're doing it by yourself with no outside help from, let's say, a medical doctor or someone who's studying specifically this stuff?
So the histamine and stuff was all stuff that I learned through my own research, because back then I didn't know anything, and I didn't really understand it until about 3 or 4 years ago. All I knew was I was having allergic reactions, and my allergist just kept giving me more EpiPens and more allergy meds. And that's all he was doing, because he was not familiar with mast cells either. So
it doesn't seem that way, that it was so
because he was just like, it's cancer. Everything was post-cancer syndrome.
Yeah. So that he did what I'm saying is, with him, it seems like he's like, this is the protocol we're going to take.
Yeah.
Not do the where's the real root and like kind of dig out the whole thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because everybody at that point in my life was saying, like my Dr. Wise was, well, you're having post-cancer syndrome. This can happen. It's just because your immune system has been so activated and you've been on a lot of antibiotics, and the surgeries just lowered your immune system. So you're probably just having these immune system cytokine storms that are being produced because your body's just really inflamed from everything that it's been through. But once it's calmed down, it should be fine. And that wasn't really sitting right for me. But then I was having these moments where I was talking to God because these reactions, being ushered by ambulance to a hospital and having these reactions all the time, I didn't know what was going on. And I just remember seeing that my cancer center offered something called Reiki. And every time I had wanted to go, I couldn't go because I had a doctor's appointment.
Okay.
But Reiki and energy work has been something that I've been very familiar with.
Right.
Ever since I was a child, because of my intuitive psychic abilities that I had early on.
Right.
Which that's a whole other topic. But I remember seeing that. I was like, I know what that is. I know what Reiki is. I really need to go to that. And because at that time, I just remember saying, God, if you were going to have me live like this after cancer, why didn't you just take me? Why didn't you just take me then? Because I don't know what's going on in my body, but I can't live like this. And I was scared because I was scared to eat. I was scared to do everything. And to be able to like just eat a bite of something, and it was just like, am I going to react to this? Am I not? I don't know what's going on. Because at that point, like I said, I didn't research anything at this point. I was just giving all my power away to all my doctors, telling me I have post-cancer syndrome. Oh, it's my eosinophilic esophagitis. This is what happens. Like, I just literally I didn't have any sense of, I couldn't think for myself.
It seems like you didn't have a sense of direction.
I didn't.
I think you needed, what I personally think is you might have needed a doctor that you could trust. And I'm not saying that you didn't trust your doctor. I'm saying you needed someone who specifically designed that would say, I care about her.
Yes.
And this is what I'm taking. Angela is my patient.
Yes. And I had 12 different doctors that were addressing different
too many
things.
chiefs, not enough Indians.
Yes, exactly.
Because that's how doctors are. But honestly, they're like, you're gonna listen to what I say, and that's what. And not they tend not to have an open mind on this in Western medicine.
They don't.
Because the FDA, you got to do this.
There is, and that moment when I went to my my cancer center. I walk into the door for this Reiki circle, and this woman from Brazil walks over to me, just clear as day, just walks over and she's like, "You." And I was pretty disheveled when I walked in there. I was like, I'm happy to be here. Where do I sit?
I don't blame you. I mean, come on, you give yourself a break there. You kind of been through a lot there.
Yeah, I was like going through a ringer. And because I'm like, I just want to die. Like, and she just walks over to me and she goes, "Do you know why you're sick?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't care at this point. I just want to get well and I'm here for support.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "'Cause you're not using your gifts." And it was the first time in a while that I had even been approached about my psychic abilities and to really that I really talked about them or really uncovered them openly. And this woman who does not know me just walks over and she's like, "Guess why you're sick? Because you're not using them." And I knew exactly what she was saying. And I said, "Well, I never had a teacher. My teacher died when I was 9 because my dad was the psychic mentalist, gifted one of the family. And he was brilliant. And I inherited a lot of his abilities. And for a while in childhood, that was another part of my awkwardness was that like I had all these experiences and the things that I like to do. I was grateful that I had a few friends, Takesha being one of them, was really into him, was really into it
She's gonna be
too.
a theme here,
Yeah.
Takesha.
And so she at least I always could confide in her. And um, but I just remember, but I had gone a long time being in California. I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna talk about this."
I'd like to ask Takesha if did she really believe you? So, like,
Oh, she did because she was on the same page. We were both doing the same. Like we were in it together.
Because I thought maybe she would be like, what the heck's going on with Angela here?
No.
And then wow,
No,
she
was
really
in
is
it
your
with-
ride or die. She really is your ride or
Yeah,
die.
we would do seances together in the woods. I mean, we were all into it.
Oh, you were all in.
Yeah. And we would go and like look at like old cemeteries after school. We were really into it. But anyways, I just remember her saying that and I said, "Well, I don't have a teacher." And she's like, "Well, when the student's ready, the teacher appears." And I said, I'm like, "Okay, well, let's just see how I feel after this session, like after this group, and we'll talk after." And that day, she channeled Reiki for me. It was a group where we did like a Reiki circle where we all held hands, and the facilitator, who is a very dear mentor to me now, his name is Brian, walked around and channeled the Reiki for us. And then we individually broke up into different, separately. And then there were volunteer Reiki practitioners, and her name is Andrea, the woman that approached me. She decided, I didn't know who it was because I had my eyes closed when they were assigned which person to work on. And she told Brian that right then and there, apparently I've learned this later, that she's like, I'm working on her. Like, do not assign me anyone else. I'm working on her. She's my girl. And so I had no idea that she channeled for me. And that day was something that I will never forget because that was when everything started to shift. And I left that. After that, I spoke with her and she said, "I want to work with you and I want to heal you." And I was like, "Well, right now it wasn't like I wasn't getting paid well, but all of my pay was getting like very dispersed. We were very thin." And so I said, "Well, how, like, I can't afford to see you every week." And she's like, "I just want you to do the work. I want you to show up and I want you to work and I want to work with you and I want to heal you, help you heal." And that was when everything in my life started to shift. And at the same time, my doctors were putting me on a plant-based diet. So I was mostly vegan at this point, transitioning into a mostly vegan diet because I was told that was the answer. And I started working with her. And I worked with her for 9 months. And during that, every week, and during that 9 months, my whole life, my body, my mind, my spirit completely shifted. And I reversed every single one of my symptoms, every single one. And like my allergies reversed. I was eating foods again that I couldn't eat in the past. And then one day because one of my intentions that I set every day was, well, what next? Like I can't go back to the fashion industry. And I kept saying like, well, I need clarity. I need clarity. And I came out of a session with her and I said, I'm feeling like this is what I'm supposed to do. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but I am feeling like I'm being called to utilize my gifts and to learn this practice of Reiki to help others heal and start my own healing practice. And I'll never forget because she starts crying because she had been waiting for me to come to this realization. But she's like, you had to come to this. And I immediately started, reading all the right books that she gave me. And I started, um, my training with her. I did my certifications. And after the first attunement, I just started practicing on friends. Still not sure what I was going to do yet with my life. Just wanted to get this attunement to see if I could even do it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was working on my friends, I was starting to channel deeper stuff, and like my psychic abilities were really coming into play in a way that I had never been able to experience or explain. And I was pulling stuff out of them that they had never told anybody, like stuff from their childhood, like that I didn't even know. Because these were friends that like were new friends that like so I really only knew them in their 20s. Like I don't know what happened to them when they were 5, So that started a thing. So I was like, okay. And then I started getting more like, and those were like my practice clients. So I didn't think much of it. And then 4 months later, so that was November 2014. And then February 2015, I got my went through my second level of training. And once you complete your second level, you're allowed to start charging and like actually start working as a certified practitioner. But back then, 2015, we didn't have social media to market on. I didn't even know what to charge. But again, and I thought, well, my friends all have been receiving Reiki from me for free. Like, are they really going to even pay for this now? Every single one of them did. And I was like, oh, okay. In the first 2 to 3 weeks of my practice, but I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just channeling Reiki and I'm doing this. And my practice was booked in 3 weeks just from them sharing with their friends, between them and then them sharing with their friends. It was like a miracle that I never even like thought. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this is really wild. And I feel like even though like I wasn't like 100% perfect in my I was able to still I was starting to like have the capacity to work slightly again.
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't know if anybody's asked you this. So you said that your dad had the sort of psychic mentality. That was what he did. And that's who he was. And you said that when you first got into this, you had this ultimate change of your life. You had to get out of doing the fashion. You got into this. It changes your life. And now it's your career. And now you're better spiritually, mentally, physically. Do you think it's possible that in all of a sudden it came full circle that although your dad had passed at 9, took care of Angela to get to this
100%.
point.
100%.
As I'm
Absolutely.
thinking about it, I'm thinking, this is your dad's way of saying, I'm going to take care of my daughter.
Yes. 100%. I credit, I mean, yes, I credit everything. Like I'm very connected to God and spirit. And sometimes I think that when people think that you're a psychic or a medium, that, oh, you know, it was, there's always that like,
It's a gray area.
it's a gray area. And that's the thing. I've always been very connected to my faith with spirit and God and my angels and my guardian angels. And I truly believe that my father is my guardian angel to this day. Because even though there was a lot of emotional instability that came out of his passing, because, you know, that was so sudden and it created a lot of pain. Because there was always like anger, but I feel like he has made it his mission on the other side to make sure that I've always been taken care of throughout all of this. And even the journey that I've been on with the Lyme and my career, it's like I think that sometimes maybe that was just his role. Maybe his role was to come to be incarnated to have me, and then for whatever reason, like his role was to be my parent from the other side, not from this side.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I looked at and I said that had to be, other than Takesha coming into your life.
Yeah.
You know, I think your dad.
My dad loved Takesha, by the way.
Takesha, you're getting a lot of airtime here.
Gonna love it.
Yeah. So, how does that lead to the carnivore diet?
Yes. So, so 2015 to 2019, April 2019, I wasn't perfect, but I was good enough to live a functioning life. Like I always had weird flares here and there of just weird stuff.
Okay.
But I felt like I was pretty good, like health-wise. But I always had this weird shoulder pain. And it was getting to a point where I couldn't move my arm up above my head. And I was getting these weird pains going through my through my arm and excuse me. And
do you ever think it was your heart at all?
Oh yeah, I went to a million cardiologists.
Okay.
And for a few years, and my cancer, my pain cancer doctor, he was like a cancer rehab specialist that handled cancer patients that would be dealing with like chronic inflammation and chronic pain. So he ended up he's truly the best doctor, best Western doctor, because he was very holistic too. And when I started seeing him for this pain, he told me, he's like, I can't diagnose you with this. But based on what you're telling me and the symptoms, because like I didn't have a pulse in my left wrist, but I did in my other wrist, but I didn't have a pulse in my left wrist, because he's like, you have something called thoracic outlet syndrome. And it took me 4 years or 3 years, because that was in 2014 when I was having this pain. And we thought, well, because I got these implants, and even though they're smaller, they're heavier. They're just denser than having a real breast. And we thought maybe it's made me like slip, like it slipped the like the ribs here. So and it happened on the left side because I was compensating, you know, even though you gotta compensate this side, this side. So long story short, because of him, I got this investigated, but fortunately, it didn't show up in scans for a couple of years. And when I finally got that diagnosis of thoracic outlet syndrome, it was like late 2018. So we're talking from like 2014 to 2018. Even though I knew what it was, it took them that long to get me that diagnosis, just because there were moments where I was like, I'll just forget it. Like I'll just get the like injections just to get the pain off because I don't have time. Like I want to I've had enough surgeries. And then I was in a new relationship with this guy who was like, I think you should get, once I finally got the diagnosis, he was like, I think you should get the surgery and hopefully that'll be it and we'll be done. So I went and had this surgery done to remove this top left rib. And when they removed this top left rib, because it was compressing the subclavian artery and the brachial plexus nerve between the top cervical rib and my clavicle. So I had to remove this rib. Well, the doctor made a huge mistake. And I also didn't know that at the time I was living in my boyfriend's home, and my Reiki room that I had converted a part of the house into my treatment area because I was seeing people in person at the time. So I was having, I didn't know this until we sold the house years later, but that room was filled with mold. Not only there, but we had some water damage in our dining room from a busted pipe from the bathroom upstairs. And I believe we probably had mold in our AC vents and maybe but I didn't know what mold could do to your body, especially now that I know the genetic type that I have. Yeah. Now this all makes sense. So I get this surgery, and my doctor, he knew that he punctured my lung when he did the surgery. The surgery was a success. I no longer have pain in the shoulder.
Punctured lungs?
But he punctured my lung during the surgery. The surgery meaning like I could move my arm again.
Oh, okay. No, but I'm saying they said it was a success and told you.
So they said it was a success in terms,
mobility.
Because of the mobility, but they said that they punctured my lung. So,
boy, that's a bad trade-off.
Yeah, and they said, but sometimes this happens. It's called a pneumothorax.
Sometimes it happens, they said?
Yeah, apparently it's a risk in this surgery because it's where they're bone sawing the cervical rib, there's a slight chance, but that usually 90% of the time it seals up in 24 hours. Well, mine didn't seal up. It actually exasperated, and my lung completely collapsed.
Well, you're hitting these like 10%ers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the odds, you're just hitting them all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the lung collapsed, but they didn't they thought it was fine.
Yeah.
And so I had to go to the bathroom. Like the next day I had to go to the bathroom and nobody was coming. And so I took off my oxygen to go to the bathroom, and my oxygen levels tanked. And that's how we knew that's how we found out that the lung that the lung fully collapsed, because I had to go to the bathroom. And because nobody did a chest x-ray the next day.
So your faith in the medical system
shot.
It's got to be at an all-time low.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they came in with the paddles. When that's all I remember was like I blacked out, and I just remember seeing people come in with paddles and put my oxygen levels back, put my oxygen on, got my oxygen levels back on, and I'm like, what the heck happened? I just had to go pee, but nobody was coming, and I had to go, and And I was on a Catholic, I was like, I was on all these like IV fluids. So, like when you gotta go, when you're on all those IVs, you gotta go. Like you can't hold it because you're
Right.
just getting like hammered with fluids and medications.
Yeah.
And so they said, oh my gosh, we'll get a chest X. We have to get a chest X-ray and as soon as possible. And so they came in with the chest X-ray and the doctor looks at me and he goes, you don't look like you have a collapsed lung. And that's why nobody thought that that we all thought you were fine and you were healing. And I just looked at him and I said, that's been my life story. Nobody ever thought that I looked sick because I learned how to not look sick. I learned how to function at that level. I've been doing it since I was born. I never really ever looked sick unless I was really sick. But even having a collapsed lung, just coming out of surgery, these people thought I was fine. So now I have being told I have 30 minutes to live. And so they're taking me up to the step down unit in the ICU step down unit and telling me that I need to get a chest tube. And they stab me with the chest tube without any anesthesia, any numbness, because I didn't have time to do any type of anesthetic or anything like that. So basically, I was just laid on my side and they're like, just take a deep breath and shoved that tube into my rib cage. And they even said, they're like, I didn't even scream. I just breathed. I had a little yelp and just my adrenaline took over. And I was in the hospital for 10 days. And during that time, my neurological that's when, and so that's really where it leads me to where I'm at, because that surgery was the trajectory of what took me from living pretty kind of on this teeter-totter of okay, well, I wasn't fantastic, I wasn't sick, I kind of always had this I was pretty even kilter,
Right.
I wasn't great, but I wasn't terrible. And to me, great is not terrible, But after this surgery, once I got home after being in there for 12 days, I couldn't stand up and I kept fainting. I would stand up for 5 minutes and I'd pass out.
Yeah, probably not the best sign.
Right. So I kept going back to the hospital. They kept telling me, oh, it's the surgery. Oh, it's your vagus nerve. This shouldn't be happening. And then I was like, okay, well, now my blood pressure is at 80/40. Now now I'm all of a sudden becoming more and more intolerant to foods. All of the things that happened after breast cancer are now just being exasperated. And I am losing foods and my driver's license. Lost my driver's license because I couldn't drive. I couldn't, eventually they kept prescribing me walkers.
Right.
So I didn't want to do a walker.
Walkers meaning
because I couldn't to walk.
Okay.
I had to depend on people to take, to shower me. I'm in a relationship. My boyfriend, unfortunately, is a TV writer. So he doesn't have time to really take care of me. So I am calling my friends and people that we knew that could at least just take me for a walk so I'd get off the couch, doing all of the things. I luckily had home health come in and help me with blood work and stuff. But all my doctor's appointments, I had to have somebody take me. It was a complete nightmare. And then I start losing foods and I start becoming allergic to everything, to everything, to everything. I'm doing all of these things right. I am applying every tool in my holistic toolbox because I, at this point, had been, 2015 to 2019. I've had my practice for 4 years.
Right.
I also, just a week before my surgery, I had achieved my Reiki master and Reiki teacher attunement. So I had just finished becoming that like master.
Right.
So that leads me to now I'm going through all, I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess like the first thing that came to my mind was, well, I guess I went through the training. I got my master certificate. Now here's the real training. And my teacher got sick with leukemia. And I just remember, I think it was her or someone else that said, well, when the master's ready, the teacher disappears. And I was left, it felt like was left by myself,
Right.
trying to figure out how to heal myself
Right.
with little to no help. And it destroyed my relationship. He ended up breaking up with me. We had multiple of other reasons too. But that ended up transitioning me to Pennsylvania. So this is from April 2019. We break up in August 2020. And then by January 2021, my mom is having this knee replacement surgery. So I just was like, well, you know what? At this point, even though I am sick as shit, I have to come and take care of my mom. But maybe, just maybe, I'll find answers, because throughout this whole time, all the doctors wanted to tell me was that I had an autonomic dysfunction and that my body's nervous system was malfunctioning.
But it was also them trying to say that, kick the can down the road.
Yes. Yes. So I was like, and they kept saying, well, you're going to have to live like this for the rest of your life. And I just remember saying to myself, if you're going to tell me that I'm going to live like this for the rest of my life, I'm going to at this point, I'm going to die, because I also was I had lost 30 pounds within a couple months. I went from 125 pounds to 89 pounds.
Right.
I couldn't eat. And every time I would eat, I would have a reaction. So their solution was, let's put her on a feeding tube or TPN. I'm like, I'll probably react to that too. It's not like I don't know how to eat.
Right.
I'm a holistic coach. I teach people how to eat. I am not, I don't struggle when it comes to nutrition. I learned a lot about it throughout my journey. So once, I got home in January 2021, I was having a reaction, and my old neighbor called my mom just to make sure I made it home safely, who also suffered from Lyme, and goes, has she ever been checked for Lyme disease? And my mom's asking me this, and I'm shooting myself with an EpiPen and taking Benadryl at the same time. And you're asking me if I've ever been tested for Lyme disease? And that's where I am. That's really that whole thing that I've been through led me to that. And I argued with him. I was like, how is that possible? And that's really when I started understanding that Lyme is an opportunistic infection. Lyme also is exacerbated by mold, and it can become activated when you're living in mold. And if you've had a severe surgery or any type of traumatic event, which not only did I have a surgery to heal from, but I'm also now healing from a traumatic breakup, nonetheless. And my whole life literally collapsed within the matter of a couple of years. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's literally happening again. And so I wasn't ready to get tested for Lyme, but I finally called my doctor, and he wouldn't test me. And he said, it doesn't exist in California. I have no reason to test you. And I said, well, don't people leave? And so,
but them not knowing your history either.
Right. So
it's gotta be so frustrating.
Yes. So then I lied, and I said, well, I actually left. I said I went camping, and that I noticed that there was a tick behind my ear, and I've been having some issues. So if he could just run a panel. So he did. And that came back positive.
Well, there you go.
Finally, right?
After all these years.
And that point, that was I was 35. I was 35 years old. So I was like, how
was it relief?
It was like a relief, but also how? how? And at the same time, at that point, when I finally got that diagnosis, I had lost my ability to eat anything but meat.
Lost your ability, or just mentally just weren't you
Oh,
didn't know what to
no. I mean, like, every time I would eat a vegetable, I was going into anaphylaxis.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the meat. So I kept cutting back on the meat, and I was getting sicker and sicker. And then I was like, well, what am I going to eat? Because I don't have anything else. And then I learned that there was a community of carnivores that were healing their autoimmune issues, Lyme disease. It was a whole thing that I was introduced to. And that's how I started the carnivore diet.
Okay.
3 years ago.
So it's 3 years ago you started.
Yes.
Okay. The carnivore diet I heard from Mark Bell. He is a bodybuilder out in California. And that is when I first initially heard about it, I thought this can't be healthy. The reason being is because for years,
I think I thought that too. I just don't remember anymore.
Just over decades.
Yeah.
You can't eat too much red meat. Red meat's bad for you.
Mhm.
You need grain. You need gluten. You need this. You need that. How did you get through that barrier? Because the barrier is this thick, and you're going to get a lot of resistance, whether it's from old school parents, whether it's from your friends who are vegetarians, or to your friends who are keto diet. Carnivore diet is a very, it's an extreme one because you're only eating meat, eggs, and there was one other one, poultry, right?
I don't eat poultry.
Do you eat eggs?
Mm-mm.
So it's just red meat?
I just only eat red meat.
Okay, now this
but other people do. Other people on the carnivore diet do eat more of a assortment and variety.
So does your meat consist of just cow meat? I mean, or is it bison? Is it?
Yeah. So I eat beef, veal, goat, lamb, venison. Occasionally, if I can find bison, I'll get it, but I don't really ever.
Yeah, bison's tough. You could probably order it. But
yeah, I can.
It's just, it's also very expensive.
Yeah.
So how did that change? So how long till you made that change? Like, where do you see? Because I tried it once. Didn't go well. Not well. I'm not.
You got to get adapted.
Because it's hard. The initial first couple weeks or a couple days is kind of easy because I like meat. And then I didn't realize what you couldn't eat on a traditional carnivore diet, not red meat, not only meat. Then it got a little goofy. And I had to stop. It's a goofy, So for me, I was different. It reacted to me differently.
Absolutely. Well, you have to know your macros and what you're eating. And that's something can be very specific to people. Some people can I was very grateful that in the beginning, I just ate what I could, but I had to be very specific in terms of the types of meat that I ate. I had to eat non-aged meat that was not hung or aged, that was immediately frozen after slaughter.
Okay.
And so I called over 500 farms in the country to find that.
Right.
You'd think you'd find it here.
Right.
But unfortunately, most of the farms here were hanging for at least 10 days, 7 to 10 days.
Why does that make a difference?
Histamine.
Oh, they're back to the histamine.
Yep, back to the histamine. Wow. Because when the meat is hung, it builds a bacteria, which is good for everybody because that bacteria is actually is what is. But for somebody who has a very weakened gut lining from an infection or pathogen that's been eating its way through your body, you don't have the ability to break that down.
But wouldn't the carnivore diet be difficult to break down the meat? Because that's the one thing that people say is so hard to digest and so hard to pass through your system.
And so for me, that's so funny. So when I was really sick, so I got severe gastroparesis, which is like slow digestion.
Yeah.
And when I went carnivore, and so I would go maybe 5 to 7 to 10 days without going to the bathroom.
Which is not healthy.
No. And when I started carnivore, I went every single day.
Yeah, and
that was like, oh my gosh, like a miracle for me.
Okay, so when you're on this carnivore diet, there's when you eat that, do you have energy and you're full of? I did the opposite. Mine was opposite. For some reason, I was good up until what I'd like to do is I'd like to fast up until I would be able to eat.
Yeah.
And then I would eat. Let's just say I ate about 2:00, right around there. Instantly, I would get tired.
Yes.
And I could never complete my work. Is it really?
That is normal in the beginning. Absolutely.
I couldn't get past that then.
Because there's a transitional phase. And I teach this even with my clients because I do a lot of carnivore coaching. Because I had that as well in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You have to transition. I felt good, but there were a lot of things that my body I had to go through an adaptation phase. And that was one of them. I would get exhausted because were you eating one OMAD or were you eating 2 meals?
I was eating one. I was getting
you're doing one.
All my macros at one sitting.
Yeah, so you're doing OMAD. Okay.
Yeah, I just because I would take.
That's probably why, because you probably went from you eating your regular diet to now I'm just doing OMAD, and you're probably consuming so much that your body just had to. I never recommend doing OMAD first out of the get-go.
I tried to do the intermittent fasting at first, and then I went right to the carnivore diet, so I did my intermittent fasting with the carnivore diet, meaning I didn't eat, and then I had that window, and I had everything. But I mean, the instant I was done,
you got tired.
But I mean, to a point where I could close my eyes and go to bed. That was almost dangerous bad, but you could in 1 second. So I wouldn't work out. The difference was I was losing weight, but not working out, but I wasn't toning my body, and it wasn't helping me boxing.
Got it.
So
I see that.
How long is that transition would last?
It lasts about a month.
A month?
Yeah. But the thing is so I would say that instead of doing it in one meal, what I suggest with my clients is you eat a carnivore diet, but eat 2 to 3 meals a day and space them out like you would regularly. Like, start your day with some eggs and bacon. And then, a couple hours later, have a burger or 2 burgers and some tallow or some butter or some cheese, if you tolerate cheese. And then for dinner, like have a steak. Maybe put some organs with your burgers. Like, so you're not eating it all at once.
What do you mean organs?
Organ meat, like liver, or heart.
Oh, geez. I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, you don't have to. I'm just saying, like, I do have some, I eat organ meat.
No Reese's peanut butter cups on
no
this
Reese's,
diet.
no Reese's.
I am out on that. I'm trying so hard, though. So I'm going back on that carnivore diet, by the way.
Well, I'm here to support you.
Yeah.
Because that you need to prime your body. And if you just jump in and with it, having those fatigue is what's going to happen when you're eating that much protein. Your blood sugar is going to spike like crazy if it's not used to it, and then it's going to crash and you're going to get tired.
Right. And I'm on thyroid medication. I'm trying to get off of it.
Yes.
So I'm trying to, I want to get it, but I can't get past the stigma surrounding the red meat because of prostate issues. They said that that's somehow linked to prostate cancer. I don't know if it is. That's what they say. What meats, let me put it this way, what meats are better for you than just a regular beef meat that you would get at Giant or Wise or
I would stick with a farmed, like
grass-fed.
Okay. Grass finished is like grass-fed, grass finished is key. But to be honest, eat the meat that you can afford.
Okay.
So I always recommend if you can get to like a farm that has a quarter cow or a half a cow, that would be your most optimal, financially conservative way to get your meat, because that way you at least would have financially. That's just better because per pound.
All right.
But there are several other farms that I truly trust and believe in. But if somebody is trying to do it like on a budget, I say, because a lot of people say to me like, oh, it's so expensive. And it's really not. It's just that when we think of eating carnivore, people think you're eating like ribeye steaks every day. And I don't eat ribeye steaks every day. I'll eat I can eat ground meat now. I used to not, but I would stick with more like chuck roasts or, shanks, ossobuco, like the cheaper cuts. And also make sure that you're eating enough fat. And if you do well with dairy, as long as it's like grass-fed, grass-finished, like even like A2 or raw dairy would be best. But just make sure you're not using any seed oils.
Seed oils meaning?
Like canola oil or sunflower oil, vegetable oil. You don't.
Okay, so you don't want that. You don't want to put that down.
Avocado oils.
Really, avocado oil?
No olive oils. No, carnivore is strictly carnivore. So I mean, some people do use olive oil, and I don't because it's not carnivore. Okay. But I would suggest using beef tallow instead.
So there's butter. Alternates to what normally would be. So there's alternates to the canola oil. There's alternates to the avocado oil. So there's alternates in the carnivore diet.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So here was
even
always my issue.
Pig lard is good for you.
Is that readily available?
Yeah, you can get pig lard. Yeah.
I never in all my years to go in the grocery store, I've never heard of that. But I guess it's a thing. One of my other biggest issues was always, if you get a diet, okay, what can you run down a list of things to eat on a carnivore diet? So I said, I'm going to do a carnivore diet. I knew nothing. I don't have an internet. I don't have anything.
Yeah.
Angela comes to me and says, this is what you can eat.
Yes.
What can you eat?
You can eat. Well, my next question. So if you ask me what you could eat from a carnivore diet, before I told you, I would ask you, what is your reason for going on it? Because there are different levels of carnivore. So if you are going on a carnivore diet to get off thyroid medication,
I would say cut weight, and to get, I really would like to get off because I know my insulin spikes at a certain point.
Yes.
And I don't know. And it's always when I break my fast, it's always skyrocketing. So I know that, and I know my body enough to say, okay, can I ease into this? And I never do, but I always, it's so bad. And then I just go back.
That's why you got so tired, because you ate so much and then
that's what I mean. So I have to somehow figure out a way where I could do throughout the day, eat.
Yes.
But still kind of stay in that realm of fasting. I don't know if that makes sense, because I don't want to eat all my macros throughout the day, and then I'm done working out and I burn 1,000 calories and I'm starving going to bed.
Yes.
So
exactly.
How do you, and my audience, there are a lot of boxers and MMA fighters and what have you. How could I mitigate that? So if I need to know what I can eat and what I can't eat, and if I'm cutting weight or putting on muscle.
Yes.
So go with the cutting weight first. I'm cutting down from I'm actually 203 today. I got to go to 175 by April.
Perfect.
So what do I eat?
Fatty meat.
And that would comprise of?
Ribeyes, 80-20, like ground meat, 80-20.
That's ground beef you can get readily available.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
Yep. 80-20.
Bacon.
Okay. And
what's sausage? Like a patty.
So again, it's a fine line, because sausage generally has, if you look at like the ingredients, a lot of them have like herbs and spices and certain fillers that aren't great for inflammation. So I don't really recommend sausage to my clients, but everybody has a sensitivity. However, if I'm looking at you eating sausage versus a potato,
okay.
Like,
but potato wouldn't be on carnivore diet.
It wouldn't, but that's what I'm saying. Like if you really look at like splitting ends, if I'm splitting ends here, if I'm looking at what you would, if you're like, well, I I don't have access. Like, I want to eat this sausage because that's all I have access to.
Okay.
Because it's either that or a potato. I'd say, okay, well then just eat the sausage.
What about like a roast beef?
Yeah,
That's okay.
that's fine. But
Okay.
again, it's however strict you want to be. I don't, because with carnivore, it's you're just adding salt to taste. So you're not adding the herbs and the spices and the garlic and the oils.
So salt's okay?
Salt is the only element that is recommended on a carnivore diet.
Okay.
But like I said, some people like to have some, they like to keep their herbs.
Ketchup?
No.
Okay.
No, that's way out.
Man, I am like striking out here. Because I'm trying to figure out. I want to taste, but I don't want the salt because I don't want it to retain water as much, as I'm cutting.
Right.
That's just tough for me.
But the thing is you're going to actually lose a lot more than you think. So having some salt is important for you just to make sure that your minerals are balanced. So think of salt as a supplement more than like a thing that it's not the staple. Yeah.
Okay.
It's more of a supplement.
Okay.
So you just salt to taste. Like for me, where I'm at, I use a lot of salt because I need it. Just for me balancing minerals and having Lyme and SIRS. You don't have that. So you might not need as much. There are a lot of carnivores that don't even use salt. They just do meat and water, and that's it.
Is a lime, you could put lime and lemon in water or no?
No, but again, if that's something that's helpful to you, I don't say not to do it. Just because, again, like to me, like a squirt of lemon or a squirt of lime, there are worse things that you could be putting into your body. But I do draw like a fine line of, well, some people are like, well, what about fruit? And I'm like, well, that's animal based. That's a whole other topic. Or what if I eat vegetables? I'm like, well, then that's more ketovore. It's not carnivore. It's like there's
would fish be considered carnivore?
Yes.
Okay.
But
salmon?
Salmon is great because it's a fatty fish. I'm allergic to seafood. I have been since birth, so I recommend it, but I don't believe that that fish. I have some friends that are really like pro fish, but I truly believe that you can do carnivore on just fish, but I think that seafood is fine like once or twice a week.
Like shrimp? Like the
shrimp is fine.
Okay.
The fattier the better, but you want to also think about where you're getting the fish. I'm more concerned about the fish, the poultry and the pork that you're eating, because fish are really high in mercury and toxic.
Yeah.
So they can be very toxic. So
I know someone who that happened to.
Yeah, and I don't really recommend it to somebody who's healing, like who is trying to heal themselves from toxicities. And the same thing with chicken and pork. So chicken and pork chicken and pigs have monogastric stomachs. So whatever you eat from the chicken and the pig, whatever the chicken and the pig eats, you're going to really eat too. And most chicken and pigs, whether they come from a local farm or whether you're getting them from the grocery store, they're fed a diet that's really high in corn and soy, which are super inflammatory. So that's not good. However, if you eat a ruminant animal that's fed a diet of corn and soy, they have 4 chambers in their stomachs. So they're really able to digest and process that way better than a chicken and a pig. So that's why I stopped eating chicken and pork, because of what their diet mainly consisted of, was actually causing more inflammation for me.
And I did feel better with the inflammation on the carnivore diet.
Yes.
I didn't have as much on my knees, my shoulders. I really did. It just was the extra stuff that was going on. I just was like, I can't really, not that. And again, I get my blood work done regularly. I take supplements too. But I'm going to try this. I'm gonna give it a shot. We're going. I'm right now at 203. I want to get myself back. I got to get myself back in shape by April 27th. But I want to wrap this up a little bit by doing a couple things.
Okay.
One, I want you to give me, when I give you a couple names, and I want to go into the couple the book here. But a couple names I want to give you. I want you to give me a couple sentences, maybe a paragraph or so of what they meant to you in your life here. And I always listen to the end of my podcast when I have in-person people because it's easier to do it that way. And the first person would be your dad. Now I know he died young. He passed away when you were young, but how did he affect your life? And I know we went around into a shoehorn about that. But how did he affect your life in your journey here for healing?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. He I need a second to think about that
Yeah, no,
because
take your time.
there's a big there's so many feelings and emotions about that
I know.
because at the time that I lived between the time being raised by him for the short time, the time that I lost him, and the time that I've lived without him, I feel like if it wasn't for him and not just the bad, not just the good, not just for this experience, I feel like he's the reason why I'm here where I am, spiritually, metaphysically, and spiritually, physically, and emotionally. And even though it was tough, I can't I don't ever blame, like, can't say I have blame or shame on him. There was a time that I really resented everything, but I think my dad had the biggest impact on my life. And now that I'm sitting here and talking about it and having this experience with you, I'm realizing that the impact is much greater than I thought it was. And I think it really has actually just made me really appreciate him even more, even though he wasn't here to personally see this. Because to be honest, with the way my dad was, if my dad had to personally see what I was going through, I think he would have killed me himself. He would have been like, I can't handle this,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with you. I don't think his nervous system would have been able to handle this. So he needed to. I swear all the time, I'm like, "Are you rolling in your grave yet, Dad? After this one?"
Well, you could tell the impact he had, which is why I started with that one.
Yeah,
I knew it would take you a little bit because it does bring back that stuff. It does bring back the good, the bad, and the ugly. It does.
Yeah.
But ultimately, he got you to where you are now.
He did. He carried me, and he's still carrying me, and I can be resentful and spiteful all I want, but ultimately, if it wasn't for him in every aspect of my life, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And I wouldn't have the story to tell that I do, and I wouldn't be able to help the people that I'm helping now. And for that, I will always be grateful, and I will live my life in gratitude for him because of that.
Good. And okay, so now your girl, Takesha.
I have so much love for that girl. I mean,
she seems fun. To be honest with you.
Yeah. she's great. She's just, I tell her that all the time too. I'm like, she had the biggest impact in terms of friendship. She wasn't really my friend. She was my family. I mean, she became my family the first day of kindergarten. I grabbed her hand. She sat with me on the bus and I grabbed her hand and I told her I was scared. And she held my hand through kindergarten, and I tell her all the time, I'm like, you held my hand through the first day of kindergarten, and whether I see you all the time or I don't, like, you're still holding my hand every day after. And, you know, she's like my sister. I don't even call her my friend anymore. When people see us, it's like, there's Keisha and Ange, like, we're just like two peas in a pod. And her family, like, I was the fifth child at their dinner table all the time, a lot. And her family, being that, like, the type of people they were, like I said, like, her, like, I was so shy and really reserved as a kid, and then once I started actually hanging out with her after my dad passed away, I was at her house all the time.
Mhm.
And so, like, her and her siblings, though, were completely opposite from what I was
Yeah.
used to, and her and her sister got me out of my shell. Like, they would throw mud at me in the summertime, and I would cry, and they would just be like, "We're gonna keep throwing mud at you until you stop crying, until you do something about it." So they helped me get my backbone, where
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh," so then I would, like, I remember, like, throwing mud back at them, and I was so worried I was gonna get in trouble or something, or I was gonna get in trouble for getting dirty. And it was just, like, all these things that I grew up with, like, these stigmas, because just having a different background. And
Mhm.
she taught me how to, like, have fun and be a kid, because I had to grow up very quickly, and so
Yeah.
I was not used to having that childlike behavior. I wasn't used to going camping or doing stuff outdoors. And between that and just her friendship, just like I said, we always could count on each other, and just having that one person in your life that no matter what happened, no matter where life was taking you, you knew you had someone to lean on. And that's what I think we were for each other, and we still are. And she lives here, like, she lives locally, but
Does she?
she lives in Mifflinville.
Oh.
But she lives locally, and we don't get to see each other as often, because she has family and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, she's definitely had an impact on you.
oh my
I could tell
God,
you, whether she took you out of that shell or not, to the shell that she opened you up
she
to,
did. She did.
is the person
She
I could see you are now.
absolutely. I mean, she was the one that when I told her I found this school in California, she's like, "You have to go." Like, she never, even as a friend, how, like, some friends really will, like, hold you back. There are some friends out there that will hold you
Yeah.
back or tell you, like, "Oh, I don't think that's a
Oh,
good
yeah.
idea." Oh, she was the first one to be like, "You're getting on that plane." Like,
Yeah.
and to this day, she she always tells me, "I'm making sure you get back on that plane," because
And the last one. Okay. I want you to take a minute. I want you to think about it. Think about everything that this person meant to you in your life. And that would be your mom.
I knew you were gonna ask that. Just had a feeling.
Did you?
Oh, yeah, it's not my dad, so I was like, "Has to be my mom."
I think your mom, and I say that because a lot of times when you go through something that you don't know that your parents or that you're struggling with that your parents don't know about, and you don't know what your mom went through until you realize that down the road. So when you look back in your head, and I know how it was with my mom, my kids now. I'm like, if I only knew what my mom was going through, maybe I wouldn't have been as bad as I was. Maybe I
Mhm.
wouldn't have been, you know, just a wild kid
Yeah.
and not care so much about her emotions. Um, how did uh, tell me the impact that she's had, that she's gone through, sacrifices she's made for you.
Oh, boy.
You take a minute if you want. You could,
Yeah, no, there's just a lot to process with
Mhm,
that, because there's a lot of healing that I'm
mhm.
doing right now with my mom about that, with the sacrifices, because it's something that I have to think about, because she channeled her pain a lot differently than I wished she would have when I
And
was
that's
in high
part of the
school.
understanding, though.
And that was the way that she processed her pain, was the reason why I wanted to leave this area, because it was like I felt like I didn't have a mother or a father, because she was, she had a boyfriend, and
Mm.
like from her perspective, I understand she wanted to be with a man that she loved, and after going through what she went through with my dad and loss and everything that she went through with me and my health, she was happy to find a man at that time, and she was with him most of my high school. But I wished I could have had more of time with her back then. But I truly have had to relearn and understand, and like relearn, unlearn, understand, like, and have compassion for that, which has been part of my biggest journey, is just having that compassion for her. Because I don't think as a teenager I really understood. I didn't understand it. And that pain is something that I'm still working through, is that not that the grown up Angela understands that, but the inner child, the inner teenager Angela is still working through that. But I do have a lot of love, respect, and for her, I still have we're still working through our differences, but I have to give her so much credit, because the cards that she wasn't really dealt the best of cards in her life either. And it's not like being an adult and being a parent and being a wife come with a handbook, right?
No.
So you're doing the best you can with what you got. So I think she did her best. And I'll always tell her that, like, I know you did your best, and I know she's still trying to do her best. And even though we might have some moments, I know that we both are doing our best with each other now. But I do have a lot of love and so much respect for her. And again, I don't think I'd be here today if it wasn't. I know I wouldn't be here today. She had to give birth to me. Someone had to give birth to me. but in retrospect, she's always like supported me. She's always encouraged me. She's always loved me. She's always, even if she didn't want me to do something, she never held me back in anything, and she still doesn't. She's my biggest cheerleader, and for that, I am truly grateful. And I hope that one day, if I'm ever a mom, that I can live through her in that way.
Well, I could tell you this,
Mm.
and I am a father.
Mm.
I am a husband. I'm also a son. The stuff that your mom went through, my dad had left.
Yeah.
3 boys
Oh my gosh.
in
I'm
the
sorry.
city, just left. Got up
Oh,
and left. It wasn't left, it was abandoning.
yeah.
So as a kid, going through the same issues that I'm sure you went through, not health-wise, we didn't understand. But what I can tell you is the product that you are is from your mom, because your mom was there.
Yes.
She was
Absolutely.
there for you.
She was.
Whether you guys butt heads, whether you guys disagree, whether she don't like your boyfriend or you don't like her
Yeah.
boyfriend, at the end of the day, there is one mom that put you here on the path that you're in.
Yes.
And to be grateful enough, like you are, to help people the way you do now is a microcosm of what your mother was or wanted to be to you.
Yeah.
And I could say that with confidence.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank
Well,
you.
it's something that I've seen in you in these 3 hours that
Oh,
we've been
wow.
here. It is a joy to have someone like you here. It is a
Thank you.
joy to talk to someone who can talk to you on a level of not only never sit there and mumble over your words and you talk very well.
Thank
You
you.
speak well. You come off with energy, compassion for other people, and knowledge.
Thank you.
And it's an amazing thing to have here. I'm so thankful that Jean had introduced me to you over the summer when I was in Las Vegas. I was in Las Vegas,
Oh
and
my gosh.
she sent me a message that said, there's someone I think you'd like to have on the podcast. And at first, I didn't know who, Angela was, but I'm glad to have met you today.
Me too.
It's an awesome experience. It is a something that I will cherish, and something I'd like you to come back.
I would love that.
That would be awesome.
I would love to come back.
And you could do my journey. You could see how I am progressing on my journey.
Yes.
So
I am so grateful and honored just to share this space with you and to meet you and to have this conversation with you. Thank you for being so generous with your time.
No, I mean, we finally got it together.
I appreciate it. So
it was well worth the wait. I could tell you that. But if you could, Angela, give out your social media there. That's the people can contact you for your healing and the stuff that you do.
Yes, absolutely. Of course.
If they wanted to contact you.
Oh, so sorry. I was like, yeah, I will share my stuff on social media.
No.
You.
I'm
so sorry.
I want you to, me, they don't want to hear my story. I'm just a dumb bagel guy. They want to hear your story. So if you could give out your social media, tell them where they can contact you.
Yes. If you'd like to contact me, you can reach out to me. I have 2 Instagram accounts. One is Ange, A-N-G, Lerro, L-E-R-R-O 28. That's my personal journey. And then I actually have another account that I use for all of my carnivore content. And that goes more in depth about my healing practice. And that is Meat-Based Medium. It's spelled just the way it sounds. Meat-Based Medium.
Yeah. And you also have a YouTube channel. I did see that.
I do have a YouTube channel that I'm launching in January.
Okay.
I have it set up and ready. It's just there's no videos yet, but the first one will be launched in January.
Oh, I did subscribe though.
Yay! Yeah, I'm so excited.
Good. So please like and subscribe to your channels. Follow Angela. She's a plethora of knowledge there. She's going to help me get to 175.
I
have till April.
I am.
Again, Angela, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, George. It was a true honor. Thank you.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.